And welcome into the Thursday edition of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5. The Game. Robby, Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. We got a loaded show today. Lots of Titans talk to get into, Preds as well. Dan Hinote, Predators assistant coach, joining us at 7:30. We'll be joined at 8 o'clock by the great Nicole Auerbach to get into the latest in college sports. We'll get our thoughts on the NCAA tournament, but also some interesting stuff yesterday between the NCAA and the Supreme Court that we'll get into as well. So looking forward to that conversation at 8 o'clock. At 9:30, Hal Gill, Predators radio analyst, will join us as well. Looking ahead to the game tonight for the Predators against the Dallas Stars, going for 7 wins in a row tonight. So the Preds back in action tonight at Bridgestone Arena. So that means Preds pick to click coming up at 8:45, Joe, with a chance for myself to go for 2 in a row. What are your thoughts?
You sure you don't want to just kind of live on the glory of
I am for at least one more day.
But I know it'd be kind of nice, I think, to just have a little break between games, so you could still float. Yeah. But that's all right. You're on a roll. Jump right in there and make it 2 in a row.
We're going to see if I can do that today at 8:45. You'll have your opportunity to participate in Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka, coming up today at 8:45. Joe, there's a lot of places I want to go here in the first segment. Let's start with an addition to our radio station. Caroline Fenton coming on board, joining Jared Stillman in the afternoons on Stillman and Company. We are very excited for Caroline to be here. I've met her a couple times now at this point. I think she's going to be great. She comes highly recommended. I know that our good buddy Jason Fitz is a gigantic fan of Caroline Fenton, so a really cool addition for us here at ESPN 102.5 The Game. And I think that she's going to do great in the afternoons and digital responsibilities that she'll have as well. And I think Jared could be in for one here.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about it. It's a great hire. Like you said, I mean, I buy into most of what Fitz says. We'll see on Todd Downing.
You know what? Maybe not Todd Downing.
We'll see on Todd Downing. We'll see. But no, I mean, Fitz is the best. So she did great stuff up there. I think it's an awesome addition to our team. I'm going to try not to be totally biased for her and against Jared, in that instance. I think Jared maybe needed to, step aside when he introduced her in the video yesterday a little bit,
Look, he's getting used to the video portion of this. He's only been doing it for a few days, so sometimes it takes some adjustment.
So this is one of many things where I think Caroline can make him and us better.
Absolutely.
With Jared, so right now, we're streaming live.
We are.
And whenever I look at the little stream things that come across Twitter sometimes, I'm at least comforted that there's some distance between us and the camera.
Yes.
I mean,
there's not a whole lot of distance.
Like Jared, I mean, if I can take this mic, I could go up to the camera and show you. Like Jared's like, "Hey, everybody, I'm Jared Stillman. Listen to my take right now." It's like, dude, back it away a little bit. But this will be good too because now there is a co-host to. You're gonna have to pan back a little bit, right?
Yeah, you would think so at least.
There's all kinds of positives about this, but Caroline seems to be really talented, and I think it's going to be a terrific addition to that show.
I think it is too, and just looking forward to seeing that develop and welcoming Caroline here to our ESPN 102.5 The Game family. So a very exciting announcement yesterday at 5:30 on Stillman and Company. I got to do Smashville Live last night, and it was myself, Hal Gill, Darcy Hordichuk. I got to tell you, that guy is one of the most entertaining interviews that I think I've ever done in my entire life. If you missed Smashville Live last night, go check it out on thegamenashville.com. It was awesome.
I was taking my 10-year-old Caroline, to tumbling.
Yeah.
And got an extended listen to a segment that I was like, wow, this is a really long segment. Yes. It just keeps going.
It had nothing to do with me.
Yeah, you got 4 words in. Hal got 11 in.
Yeah.
But he was good.
Going.
He was going, and I mean, man, it brought me back actually to he starts talking about Bob Probert, one of my childhood heroes. I mean, at one point in my life, I get to not only watch people like Steve Yzerman and Nick Lidstrom and things like that, but like Probert and Joey Kosar at the same time. I mean, in the dorms, we got a keg We got a keg in the dorms for a Blues Leafs game just because we knew Probert and Ty Domi were going to fight.
Yep.
And they were out there on the first shift. And, I mean, you know, like it was like you knew it was over like a second in the game, and it was glorious. And Probert beat the crap out of him. And it was,
Of course he did.
And I'm listening to this guy, and it's like, I mean, listen, the league has changed for the better.
Yes.
But there's something to be said for that era, too.
Some of the stories that Gill told last night, we'll have Hal coming up on the show today at 9:30, and Darcy Hordichuk as well. It was pretty incredible. So if you missed that, go to thegamenashville.com. You can check that out last night from our interview with Darcy Hordichuk, former Nashville Predator. Having him and Jordan Tutu on the ice at the same time was pretty incredible to watch back in the day here if you've been a Predators fan for a long time. So go check that out if you missed it. Joe, today, opening day for Major League Baseball, and they are going to play, or at least attempt to play, 162 games. So a regular schedule this year, more fans being allowed back in the stands, a little bit more quote-unquote normalcy for Major League Baseball this year. What's your excitement level for Major League Baseball opening day here?
Yeah, and this is usually the case. I'm not ready for it at all. Like I'm not. I love baseball, but I'm not like someone who's like pitchers and catchers day.
No, yeah.
I'm following along through spring training and stuff. I mean, I'm in basketball mode right now. Gosh, I mean, it's better than spring football, but I don't disapprove of it. I didn't even know. I got in today and looked at the grid and it said MLB opening day. I'm like, really? I didn't realize that. So
do you think it may be an April Fool's joke?
That's how unprepared I am.
That's okay.
No,
that often makes for the best shows.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna try to do an April Fool's joke on you, by the way, but Caroline and I were trying to come up with something. Caroline Rexrode. Yeah. See, now we have multiple Carolines.
Didn't work out for you.
Talking about here. What's that?
Didn't work out for you.
Well, what was her idea? She had some. I had an idea to fake a heart attack, but I was like, yeah, that probably wouldn't have been. And then she said something like, if you take some noodles, some dry noodles, and hide them in your mouth, and then pretend you broke your back and make the cracking sound. Yeah. What? Like what?
That's next level.
That is next level.
I mean, I know. I should probably be worried, right?
The heart attack on the stream would be.
Yeah.
Would be something else. No,
that's probably going a little far. Yeah.
The Rexrodes go heavy duty in their April Fool's jokes here. That's what we've learned.
Some gore.
That's right.
Blood and gore. Jeez. And by the way, what's up, Elijah?
What's up?
We haven't talked to Elijah yet.
I know. Well,
I'm dying at the thought of Joe faking a heart attack on stream. Like he just stands up while Robby's talking and just hits the deck.
Well, I'm just glad.
Fred Sanford. I'm coming.
I'm just. First off, you better be impressed that I know what that is.
That is. I am very impressed.
I'm shocked you didn't.
It's
say
probably
about
from a random GIF, but still,
I've watched multiple episodes of Sanford and Son.
Good for you.
Multiple episodes.
Great show.
It is a great show. I'm just glad that you can look Elijah in the face today, because yesterday you were appalled that he had shaved his face and weren't even able to look at it. Now you can.
Well, there's a little bit of shadow.
It's coming back.
There.
Yeah, it's coming back a little bit.
There it is.
Rectifying my error, and here in a couple of weeks it'll be back to normal.
That's right.
But
it's better already. So wait a minute now. We've gotten ourselves into, pick to click, a real competition. So did Porth give you his pick?
He gave me a list of ranked by priority. So
wow, okay.
Wherever he's at, he's usually pretty well prepared with that. So
and
we got that ready.
All stuff for tomorrow too. Like, did he?
We hadn't thought that far ahead yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We ain't got there yet. We're taking it one day at a time over here behind the glass.
Because it's intense now.
Oh, it's all intense.
Yeah, 6-6, 1-1.
In Pred's pick to click. Yeah. Just look over your shoulder. I'm coming back.
You got time.
This is going to be.
It's possible.
One day they're going to make a 30 for 30 out of our competition here on Pred's pick to click. About how I started at the bottom, and then I came all the way back. It's going to be one of the great underdog stories of our time.
It could be. If you even get to 3, I think it's at least worth one of the mini 30 for 30s. What are those called? Like the E60s or something like that.
E60s.
Yeah. Get to 3, and I think you've earned that.
Thank you.
Or at least an SEC storage feature.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Yeah. They did something on the Vandy bowling team, and I meant to tape that, and I didn't.
I want Tom Rinaldi to be the one that narrates this story. I don't think he's with ESPN
No, he
anymore.
left
I think he's
ESPN.
at Fox.
Yeah,
But still,
he's at Fox. Yeah.
I want him to be the one to narrate this story. So, not much excitement level from MLB opening day for Rexrode. Elijah, do you have any excitement level whatsoever for Major League Baseball's opening day?
A little
I know it's
bit.
a long season.
Yeah. And I'm kind of like Joe, too, where I'm still in basketball mode. Like, it's still Final Four mode here
And
on
it
this
used to be
side.
after. That used to be, in fact, opening day, I think used to be like or maybe it was actually the Monday of the title game. Am I wrong about that?
Oh, man. You might be. I can't remember.
In fact, I think in a lot of years the Final Four would end a little earlier, and opening day would be like a week after the championship game.
Yeah,
so
like it was his own thing.
Yeah, and now we've got it. You know, we got the Final Fours. We got the women's Final Four Friday, men's Saturday. I'm not ready for this yet. But this is also I mean, I think the one fandom thing I have left is probably the Tigers. Like, because I never really covered the Tigers, you know. I mean, one World Series
Tough time
helped
to be
out.
a Tigers fan.
Yeah, so when the team that you followed your whole life sucks,
And they do.
then they very much do. You know, that automatically, I mean, for a long time, I was much more into it.
Yeah.
And even just into baseball in general because of that.
Elijah, who were we listening to earlier? Was it Buster Olney on earlier, kind of previewing the season ahead and giving, like, playoff percentages for teams? And the Baltimore Orioles were at 0.0%.
Oh, that was Fangraphs.
That
Yeah,
was Fangraphs,
Fangraphs
okay.
doing their statistical projections of, I guess, playoff chances for each team. And even teams like the Tigers had like a 0.9% chance, something really low. Orioles, a flat, just 0.0% chance. Like, you have a better chance of getting mauled by a polar bear and a grizzly bear within the same hour than the Baltimore Orioles do of making the playoffs.
And it was like 2 years ago, right? That their
It
payroll
wasn't that
was
long ago, yeah.
like
Pretty
out
good.
of this world.
Yeah.
Too bad. Tough times for the O's.
And we'll see
Brian
if
Roberts ain't walking through that door.
The old AL East, the
Look,
O's and the Tigers.
the Dodgers coming back, obviously defending their World Series title. They're going to be really good once again this year.
And David
We'll see.
Price.
And David Price is a part
on
of things
the
this
hill.
year. So their rotation that was already very good has now gotten even better with David Price in the fold as well. Lots of Nashville connections on the Dodgers. You've got Mookie Betts, you've got David Price, Matt Beatty as well out there, former Belmont player. So Walker Buehler. I mean, there's a lot of connections on the Dodgers. So they're going to be very good once again. Could this be the year that the Atlanta Braves break through and at least get to the matchup with the Dodgers, maybe even get to the World Series? That's going to be interesting. I doubt it, but maybe.
Remind me again, you a Braves fan?
No.
Grow up never? Nothing? None?
I'm really
Anyone fan?
I'm really unaffiliated. Like I rooted for the Red Sox for a long time, but that was mainly because the kids I grew up with. That was in the heyday of the Yankees, and I was like, all right, whatever, forget you
Root
guys.
for the team that hates that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm
I always-
largely unaffiliated.
I always lean toward the Red Sox too. I hated both of them because, again, Tigers rivals going back. But
Right.
yeah, but I get that. I mean, you have to hate the Yankees.
I don't
right?
dislike the Braves; they're fine.
Yeah.
I dislike the St. Louis Cardinals.
Okay.
I've never
I think we
liked
can all agree on that one.
Yeah,
The three of us on this show.
Well, our new addition, Caroline Fenton, is from St. Louis, so
Yeah.
maybe there's some debates to
Could
be
be.
had there.
Could be. We'll have to see. Absolutely have to see on that front. So
I never hated the Cardinals.
they got a great
Ozzie
ballpark.
Smith.
I'll give them that.
Yeah.
Not even when they swept your beloved Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, come on.
No, it wasn't a sweep. It was a fiver.
Oh, I was a fiver.
Yeah, Kenny Rogers
Well,
had
it's
the
essentially a sweep.
Kenny Rogers had the pine tar on the glove.
yeah, that's right.
Game
Yeah,
2, baby.
That's
so
right.
that was a tough
Bring out
one.
all the stops.
That was a tough series. The Tigers kept throwing to third base rather than just take the out at first. Boy, that was some brutal pitching defense
It was.
in that series. Thanks for bringing that up, Elijah.
Absolutely.
15 years ago. Is that right?
Yes.
Ah,
Oh yeah.
stab me in the eye, but not as an April Fool's joke. Actually, stab me in the eye.
That's right. When we come back, we'll get into the Tennessee Titans and look back at a couple of signings that they made, including a big investment in a pass rusher. What should the expectations be for Bud Dupree as we look ahead to next season? We'll discuss it next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Whether it's next-day delivery or getting involved in their local communities, Napa goes above and beyond to serve you because their motor never quits. That's Napa know-how.
Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on YouTube, on Twitch, and on Twitter as well. Now, I usually say Periscope. I was told that Periscope officially was dead yesterday. Today is the official launch of it. I guess it's just Twitter Live. Periscope itself doesn't exist.
Wait,
but
Periscope itself is dead.
That's what I hear. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That's what I hear. But here I am. I'm watching a live stream of us right now
On
Periscope. So I feel like I've been lied to.
It has been resurrected.
It has.
I mean, I would think that'd be is there a news story out there about this? Periscope? I mean, Periscope's a big deal, isn't it?
Do it a Google search. Periscope was ending March 31st. But here we are today, April 1st. It's still here. So
Google search, is Periscope dead?
yes. See what comes up on that one. Is Periscope ending?
So do you sit there and chat with people on these various
I do.
platforms? Yeah, because I was in there yesterday, trying to call AAA for a flat tire with Elijah, and I looked at the screen and there was you guys were making fun of me and stuff. I'm like, yeah. So there's an ongoing conversation making fun of me during the show. I didn't realize. I didn't know that.
All you got to do is log on. You can join the conversation.
I can't do it, man.
You can defend yourself.
You absolutely.
Yeah, I know, but whatever. Twitter. That's all I got. It's on Twitter.
It is. All you got to do is click on the link. and then you could comment all by yourself.
Right, but that would only be. But if you clicked on the Twitter link, wouldn't that just be? I think you were on something else. The stuff I saw is that Twitch, maybe.
Yeah, maybe so. YouTube.
How do you keep it all? Like, how do you?
I've got 3 different tabs open. I'm just kind of monitoring it all the time. Multitasking.
And there's people commenting on all of them.
Yeah.
It just seems so busy.
It is busy.
What's really funny is there was comments from Robby's Twitter account and his YouTube account in the same thread, and they had 2 different pictures of Robby.
That's right.
Funny
Multiple
enough.
photos. Yeah.
Wow.
Get a lot of different angles of this pretty face.
This man mixes it up.
That's right.
A lot going on here.
A Renaissance man, if you will.
Right. Speaking of a Renaissance man, the Titans have made their big signing this offseason. Bud Dupree coming into the fold, and hopefully Titans fans are hoping for that he's going to come in and be the answer that they've been looking for at pass rush and specifically at outside linebacker. And you look at Bud Dupree's career so far, and specifically in the last 2 years, it's really taken off. 11.5 sacks at the age of 26 in 2019 with the Steelers. Last year, 8 sacks in 11 games with the Steelers as well before getting hurt and suffering the ACL injury. Obviously, I think you're still concerned if you're a Titans fan about how quickly he's going to be back up to full speed with the ACL injury, but you're talking about a player that's gotten 19.5 sacks in the last 2 years. So that's a huge number. So my question to you, Joe Rexrode, is when you look at the numbers that he's put up in Pittsburgh, albeit with TJ Watt on the other side, and then you look at how much the Titans are paying him to come in here and be an elite player in this league, what are fair expectations for Bud Dupree heading into this next season? What would you consider to be a success, whether it's from a statistical standpoint or how he impacts the play, a combination of the two? What would you consider to be a successful first season for Bud Dupree with the Tennessee Titans?
Well, and keep in mind that the 19.5 sacks, that's 27 games too. So
It's pretty good.
yeah, because obviously last year he goes out in game 11. I think it's 10 sacks. I mean, I think it. You know, that's where I would start there. If there's one statistical thing that you look for, could he have a great year at 7 sacks and a bunch of TFLs? I mean, in 2019, he had 16 tackles for loss to go with the 11.5 sacks, to go with 17 QB hits, couple fumble recovers. But, I mean, could he be a big-time playmaker and not have those numbers? Sure. But, I mean, I think you pay that kind of money for someone who gets enough sacks to where the offense has to account for them on a snap-by-snap, week-by-week game plan basis. That's the kind of player he's got to be. Now, I think, again, and I've said this before, since they signed him, I mean, you watch him play, and I think we've all watched him play some, but, dig into it a little bit. I mean, I love the effort and abandon he plays with, whether he's rushing the passer or not. So I think as long as that's not changed because of the knee injury, and you wouldn't expect it to be, then I think he's going to be an asset. He's going to be a great add. But, yeah, that's a huge investment that to me says this is going to be our double-digit sack edge guy that we've been missing. I mean, really, Arakpo had some good years, and Derek Morgan had some, they had some good play on the outside there, but they haven't had a real sack guy in a long time.
They haven't, and that's got to be – I think 10 sacks is absolutely fair. I mean, you're getting paid like an elite pass rusher in this league. I think 10 sacks absolutely should be an expectation for Bud Dupree. I think the more that I've watched him and the more that I've read about Bud Dupree as well, I think the more excited I am for him in terms of his ability to impact the running game as well. Like, I think people sometimes maybe just view him as, okay, he's an electrifying pass rusher. He's got 19.5 sacks in 27 games over the last 2 years. And that's great. Like, that's what you're excited about the most if you're a Titans fan. But I think sometimes maybe it goes undervalued how good he's been against the run. And that was, remember, I mean, with all the problems the Titans had last year, and not being able to get to the quarterback was probably the biggest problem they had on defense. They got gashed the first part of the year in the running game as well, and you got to find a way to shore that up. And I think Bud Dupree can really help you in both aspects, both rushing the passer and stopping the run as well.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I mean, a year ago, we talked about that a lot with Clowney.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, is still out there.
Yeah, he is.
There's someone on Twitter who keeps vowing that, like, the Titans, like, they are going to sign Clowney. I don't for a minute believe that. Clowney going to be okay being the third wheel.
Depends on how much you pay him.
I mean, I guess he could look at it like it'll be Clowney, Dupree, and Landry's the third wheel, but I don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, yeah, Clowney comes in. Everybody's like, well, he doesn't get sack numbers. Well, but he does this and this and this well, which he didn't do well enough. And, yeah, Bud Dupree's got to be a solid all-around player. He's got to be an every-down player for you. And we don't know what the depth's going to look like. I think it's going to look different after the draft. But right now, it's Dupree, it's Landry, and it's like Derek Roberson. Guys like that, you got to
bring back Brooks Reed. Get him in the fold.
What is the deal with Brooks Reed? Is he out there? I think he's out there as a UFA, I believe.
Probably.
Yeah. You got there are some guys under. I mean, I think Tazar Skipper.
Yeah.
Great name, still a great name. But yeah, I think you gotta. This is why the draft. If you could at least feel like you have a good trio, and then one of those guys as your fourth guy, then that's fine. And hey, maybe you still go into games with just 3 OLBs.
I hope not.
On the active list. Yeah, I don't know.
Of all the things last year that was problematic for this team, and I get why they did it because, I mean, who are you going to play at that position, especially when Clowney went down? But basically going into every game with 3 active outside linebackers, I mean, I felt so bad for Harold Landry at times. Like, dude, you're going to play every single snap, every single one of them. And that to me can't happen. Like, you've at least got to have 4 that are active this year, right? And I think the draft's going to be a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, you can also you can move like an Evans out there, which they did some. I think that's kind of how they looked at it. Is like, well, in a pinch, in an emergency, that's our 4,
right?
But it depends on how it all works out with special teams and everything like that too. So, but at least if you had 3, if it was those 2 guys plus the third is like your second round pick, maybe your first round pick, who knows? High pick that you're trying to develop, then at least like you'd feel good about the 3. I mean, last year the 3 at times was like it was Landry and TBD, player to be named later. That's obviously not going to be the case. So that's got to at least feel better.
Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ron texts in and says, I think Dupree's sack should be 8+, and the Titans' total run defense needs to be at least in the top 15.
Okay.
So maybe that's the impact for Bud Dupree. More than 8 sacks, and the run defense being in the top 15. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texture that says, Robby's pick to click will be the greatest comeback since Lazarus. That's a high bar.
Yeah.
We'll find out a little bit later today.
I would think that would at least get a 30 for 30. That might get a
that'd be a
Lifetime movie or something.
That'd be a lot.
History Channel.
Could be.
It's like literally a comeback of biblical proportions.
Yes, literally
right.
biblical proportions. We'll see how that goes later today at 8:45. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the NFL, taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025, and ask the question. There's a lot of skill players from the SEC specifically making a lot of noise, both in their pro days and looking ahead to the top 10 in the NFL draft. Which skill position player do we like the most outside of quarterback? We'll discuss that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game.
Here's a pretty interesting piece
Make sure you're tuning in later on in the show as we reveal a keyword for you to text into the game line for your chance to win the T-Mobile Hockey Homegate giveaway, which includes a Dos Equis prize pack, including a case of beer, dessert from Nothing But Cakes, a T-Mobile prize pack, and food provided by 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. You must be 21 or older to enter, and we'll have that opportunity coming up for you a little bit later here in the show. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on Periscope, which is still apparently a thing, YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Talking all things NFL, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Joe, let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. JP from Spring Hill texts in, says, I think if LSU's Terrace Marshall is on the board, we should snag him, and then in all capital letters, for sure. Talking about the Titans.
There's one of the names. What did he run? You know, Louisiana lover.
What? Not an LSU guy.
Yeah, he's not an LSU guy.
I didn't know that. I just assume you all things Louisiana.
Oh no,
just a Saints fan, huh?
Just a Saints fan.
Well, Terrace Marshall was all the buzz yesterday with what he ran.
With Jamar Chase, but yeah.
Well, but everybody knew Jamar. Everybody knows Jamar Chase. Right. Terrace Marshall, what did he run? He ran something ridiculous at Pro Day.
I'll have to find the exact time.
I can tell you it was
4.38.
Yeah,
4.38.40. That's what it was.
It's pretty good.
It's not bad.
Terrace Marshall, he's in that group, below the top three.
Yes,
and there could be a lot of people. He's very, he hasn't done as much as some of these other guys, but he's talented.
He's very talented, and sometimes these pro days and 40 times they get people going. And there was one really yesterday that got a lot of people going. Now, it's not a surprise because we knew this guy was built in a laboratory somewhere anyway. But Kyle Pitts yesterday, I think he's 6'5", 265 pounds. He ran a 4.40. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
At tight end,
yeah.
A 4.40.
I mean, pro day times, I'm always like,
yeah, it could be like maybe it's a little optimistic. I don't know.
But also, the pro days are a little different this year because, like, everyone's at all of them because this is what you have. I mean, already people would go to pro days, understand, but you had the combine, and it's sort of like this is what really everyone ran.
Yeah,
we're all around everybody, interviewing everybody. So, and now go to pro days too as supplement. Now it's like pro days. That's what it is. So. Maybe the pro day times are a little more reliable, less, home friendly. I don't know, but a lot of ridiculous times being run. They can't fake the verticals though. Rondale Moore will dunk on your head.
That's right, Rondale Moore, baby. There are 4 guys specifically, all from the SEC, that are drawing a lot of attention at skill positions like wide receiver and like tight end as well. And of course, that's Kyle Pitts out of Florida, Jamar Chase from LSU, and then the 2 Bama receivers, Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith as well. Joe, I asked this question yesterday to Ryan Wilson from CBS Sports about the receivers, and we'll kind of separate the receiver part of this from Kyle Pitts and include him here in just a second. But just based on those 3 receivers that are at the top of the draft, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, who do you like the most? Who do you think has the best NFL future ahead of them?
Really tough question. Because Jamar Chase was ridiculous, before he opted out last season, and nothing has really dislodged him from the NFL people. I think most teams' big boards would have him number 1. And, he's absolutely, we saw Justin Jefferson, for example, this year with Minnesota. Very good. Really good rookie year. We saw what he did at the Titans and Malcolm Butler. But Jamar Chase is absolutely better than Justin Jefferson.
Yes.
I mean, when they were on the same team, there was no doubt about it.
At least he was, yes.
So, but this, and it's hard, too, because both of them, or all 3 of them, are on these loaded, 2 of the best offenses we've ever seen in college football. Really. I know that sounds like hyperbole, but it's true. The LSU offense of 2019 and really the Alabama offense of also 19 and 20 I mean, those are two of the greatest collections of talent / schematic, everything, offenses ever in college football. So how much are guys, it's just like when we talk about, this guy, Mac Jones, he's got the greatest offensive line in football protecting him. So what does that mean if he gets the NFL? Do you count that against these guys? I don't know. It's harder. I think it's harder to judge them in this way, like who's going to have a better career. It's fit. A lot of it will be where they go and all that stuff. I do I do drift toward Waddle over Devontae Smith a little bit because of body type. I just think, and look, I hope Devontae Smith never has an injury and sticks this in everyone's face. But I buy into a little bit that he's slight, that he's skinny, and in this league, it's still a different level, even from the SEC to this league. And the hits that you take on a weekly basis.
It is, but, I mean, nobody's ever been within, 4 yards of the guy. I mean, it's unbelievable.
But that changes, too, right?
I know. But I feel like people – look, I get it. I take one look at Devontae Smith, and I'm like, that guy is the guy just out there torching everybody and running past people? I mean, he's like 150 pounds. How is he doing this? And he just continues to play. And, Ryan Wilson said it yesterday, other than some – soft tissue injury stuff, he's never really had injuries. Now, to your point, that can change very quickly at the NFL level. But I do feel like maybe some people are making too big a deal of that when it comes to Devontae Smith. The guy can flat out play. I mean, the guy's unbelievable. And I think he's going to be a really good player in the NFL. I really do.
Well, I do too. I believe in all those guys. I mean, it's just insane to think back last year – before Waddle went down early in that Tennessee game.
Yeah.
I mean, he would have been if you were like, okay, an Alabama receiver's winning the Heisman this year, he was the favorite.
Yeah.
And I think it probably helped Devontae Smith some that he was out of the lineup. But again, Devontae Smith was just incredible. I mean, by the end there, it was like, to me, it was an easy vote for Devontae Smith. I mean, there was no doubt that he was a guy who should have won. I would still rank him third, though. I'd rank him third. And I'd probably go Jamar Chase, then Waddle, then him. But there's a reason all three are probably going to go in the top 10 or higher than that, because I think they can all be great. And along with Pitts, I mean, it's quite a gift from this league to the NFL in terms of skill next year.
So let me ask you this, because this is obviously not reality, but the Titans need a receiver and they need a tight end. So let's live for a second in an alternate reality where you've got a chance in the second pick overall or the third pick overall. What would you take? Would you take a Jamar Chase-like wide receiver, or would you take Kyle Pitts at tight end?
If you're the Titans?
If you're the Titans. And you have your opportunity at both. Again, I understand they're not going to have this opportunity, but I think it's a fascinating question.
Yeah, I might go Pitts.
He's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I still really think, especially in this offense, it's really important that you have a tight end who can be an inline tight end. And I don't know that he can't. I do think he reminds me some and a better version, but of like Devin Funchess, who came out of Michigan as a tight end and basically just became a big receiver. I mean, I think Kyle Pitts is going to be a tight end. But yeah, and then again, you know what? When a guy's that good, who cares what your system is? Just take the guy. I think I'd have to go there.
Elijah, who would you take? If all things are equal and you've got a chance to take any one of these three receivers or Kyle Pitts, where would you lean?
Yeah, I'll take the 6'6" guy that runs like the wind. He can jump over people, and you can just throw a ball up in the end zone, and they'll go get it. I'll take Kyle Pitts.
I figured you probably would.
Those guys just don't come in the draft, every year. It's like a 5 or 6 year thing. Like if you have a chance to get Kyle Pitts, you don't pass that up, especially with the way some NFL tight ends are used, and having that one dominant tight end just separates your offense.
Kyle Pitts seems to me like, I know there's no such thing in the NFL as can't miss. He seems to me like a guy that's pretty close to can't miss. I mean, the dude is unbelievable.
Yeah. There have been many.
I know.
This has been said about, but yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you look at Florida, look at like where Kyle Trask right now is. So he's a guy who does suffer from the surroundings, both and Dan Orlovsky said this on our show a couple months ago, what Dan Mullen does for him, but I think also, and they had other good receivers too, but
Tony,
also
yep.
just having Pitts just as your outlet every time makes it pretty easy to be a quarterback.
It does. And that Florida offense was rolling pretty much all season long last year, and Kyle Pitts, when he was healthy, the biggest part of that for sure. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the NFL. Do some of your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. That's next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby, Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Joe, the NFL Draft begins 4 weeks from tonight. Hard to believe. 4 weeks from tonight, and the NFL Draft is underway.
That's wild. By the way, I assume the draft is going to be basically the same format.
That's my guess.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything otherwise, so I assume it's going to be the same. Like, we're going to get Belichick's kitchen and see what his
I hope so.
Golden Grams and his dog and whatever.
Yeah. Whatever Vrabel was doing last year, yeah.
That's right, the Vrabel household. Who knows what kind of hijinks could be going on in that place, huh? I mean, I actually got poop into a headline last year, so I want to thank Mike
kind of
Vrabel.
enjoyed and I know it's not going to be an every year thing, hopefully. I enjoyed the virtual draft last year, I think a little bit more than I did the normal draft. Maybe that was just because it broke it up a little bit, but I enjoyed it.
I did too. I do think that some of that enjoyment for all of us was like, wow, there's a sports event that is actually going to be happening, and we can talk about something other than the pandemic.
Sure. In full disclosure, I've never watched the entirety of a first-round draft. I've watched a lot of it before, and I watched when my teams have been picking. But I've never sat there and just watched every single pick come across the screen. I did that. I had a watch party via Zoom last year with a couple buddies of mine, waiting to see who the Packers would pick. That did not end well. But it was awesome. I kind of enjoyed it last year.
Yeah. So I guess it's the same thing. I know the Titans are kind of talking about different things that they might do on the media side of things, but I think it's ultimately going to be, it's still going to be Zoom calls, things like that. Hopefully, as we get through the draft and later into things, it'll be more normalcy. Depends on get vaccinated. I'm vaccinated. You vaccinated?
Not yet. Got the appointment scheduled.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Elijah?
Not yet,
Okay.
but it's a goal.
Life goal?
Life goal.
It is
Get vaccinated.
It is a life goal.
Get my shots.
That's right. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. John from Clarksville texted in, says, as a Dolphins fan, having the option that you just threw out there, I'm hoping that they go for Pitts above any of the receivers in the draft. So there's another vote for Kyle Pitts.
And they are now
13th, I think.
Wait, they moved back up to 6?
Oh, they moved back up to 6. That's right. Yeah, because that happened within what? Within 45
minutes of each other. Yeah.
Something like that. Something stupid.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So back up to 6. So, it's going to be somebody for Tua to throw to, right? In all likelihood, yes.
At some position, yes. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ron texted in, so is there a player in the draft worth moving up to get on offense or on defense? And to get him, would we give up away more future picks to move up? To answer the last part, yes, you would give away more future picks to move up.
Yes.
Is there a player that you think the Titans could target when it comes to a move up? I know we've had people throw out a Devontae Smith or a Kyle Pitts. That's just I don't see the Titans having the ammunition to pull something like that off. But I do think if, J.C. Horn falls to 17 or 18, and that's a player that you really want if you're the Titans, I'm not going to discount the possibility that maybe you move up to get a guy like J.C. Horn.
Yeah, that would be my answer, is if there's a corner in particular. And I guess you could say, let's say Jalen Phillips from Miami, who he's been very impressive at his pro day. Somebody like that, Aziz Ojulari, an edge that it's like top of the board. This guy's perfect, and maybe it's 3 or 4 spots.
Yeah.
But I would guess, if anything, it would be something like J.C. Horn, one of those corners that you really value above the other ones. Really, to go back to your question last segment, especially given the Titans situation, it would be Kyle Pitts. Because, again, you have A.J. Brown, you have Derrick Henry. Henry's paid. A.J. Brown's going to be paid. You now have drafted Darrington Evans. You've re-signed Ferguson, but you have a lot of other things in this offense that it doesn't make sense to use a big spend or a big draft spend on your number 2 receiver. So Pitts, though, I mean, that's what the Titans need. I mean, somewhere in here they need to get a tight end, and maybe their starting tight end.
Yeah, and that's going to be interesting to see how they go about handling that because, I mean, obviously there's a gigantic drop-off from Kyle Pitts to the rest of the group in tight end, but you brought up the importance of getting a guy that could play in line and play that position that Jonnu Smith developed into, because I think we got to remember Jonnu Smith did not immediately come in and be that. He was a guy that was raw. He could catch the ball. I think you liked what he brought to the table physically, but he had to really develop and learn what it took to be a really high-level blocker at the NFL level. So I think I see some guys in this draft that are really good, especially when you start thinking about maybe the third round where the Titans could be looking at a tight end. I think there are some tight ends that are really good pass catchers. I think there are some tight ends still left on the table that are really good blockers. I don't see a ton in that range that are really good at both. Now, you can obviously develop, and I think people forget that. You're not just what you are when you come into the league. You can develop. But that's going to be interesting if they go tight end a little bit later. Maybe it's the third round. What do they value more, the pass-catching type or the blocking type of tight end?
Yeah, Pat Fryermuth from Penn State to me is I mean, you could make the case that he's all around could be the best fit for the Titans. Again, like you said, look, Kyle Pitts is just ridiculous, and you would go there if you had your pick of tight ends. But Fryermuth is a guy who I think fits the bill of can be an asset in the run game, inline guy, but also he's a legit threat downfield. Penn State churns out some good tight ends. Where he will go, I don't know. In my wonderful mock draft, I had him taking Brevin Jordan from Miami, who's a little bit more on the receiving side than the blocking side. I mean, he's evaluated as not a great blocker. So I don't know that fits perfectly, but you can improve that stuff. Jonnu Smith certainly did, like you said. So, but that's got to be it's as much as corner is needed, and the Titans can get by, I think, at receiver and let someone develop to a certain extent. Corner, I think they have to get a starter, but I think tight end, I mean, you got to have somebody who's ready to come right in and play.
Yeah,
if not be your clear. I mean, it may be unrealistic to say this rookie's going to be clear, tight end one, but somebody who's going to play a lot at least.
And by the way, Michael Pruitt's still out there, so I don't know. Like, the more time that goes by, is it more or less likely, in your opinion, he ends up with the Titans? I think that could go either way.
I don't know why they wouldn't want to bring him back if the price is really good. And he's like a lot of guys, I think, out there right now, just like stay in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like when the Titans brought him in 2018, I mean, that was his key. And a lot of this is – for these guys is getting the pension and having enough time in the league to get the pension, and that's what he was worried about.
Yeah.
When they brought him in 2018 off the practice squad from Houston. So it's not costing you much, and I think he's been a really good find for them. So I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that.
Maybe they're just waiting for the day where they can announce the Michael Pruitt signing and the Stephen Gostkowski signing in tandem together. Maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Waiting on both of them.
Another day. It's another day without a kicker.
Come on. Going to need a kicker at some point this year. You would think. We'll see what happens.
I don't know, man.
On that front. When we come back, we'll switch gears, get back into the Nashville Predators, them taking on the Dallas Stars tonight at Bridgestone Arena, going for win number 7 in a row. We'll discuss that coming up next. And remember, 102.5 The Game is kicking off every weekend with free beer. And who doesn't love free beer? Make sure you're tuning in all day tomorrow for your chance to win a $25 gift card from Bavarian Beer House located at Opry Mills Mall. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesaling Studio, powered by RumbleOn.com, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on YouTube, on Twitch, on Periscope as well. Talking all things Nashville Predators right now. Preds assistant coach Dan Highnote will join us at 7:30. We'll look ahead to the matchup tonight for the Predators against the Dallas Stars. Nicole Auerbach at 8 o'clock from The Athletic. And then at 9:30, Hal Gill, Preds radio analyst, will join us. So still a lot to come here today on the show. And, Joe, this is a massive game tonight for the Predators from this standpoint. You've won 6 in a row. You're going for 7 in a row tonight. And, obviously, you're still in a race with Chicago and Columbus kind of nipping on your heels, chasing after that 4th spot in the Central Division. But also, like, if you can get this one done against Dallas in regulation and you win this game, you'll move to 9 points ahead of the Stars. And while they'll still have 4 games in hand on the Predators after that, you move 9 points ahead. That would require Dallas to win all 4 of those games in hand just to be 1 point behind you at that point. And if you've seen Dallas as of late, I think asking them to win 4 games in a row of any kind is very difficult at this point. So the Predators could go a long way tonight in creating some pretty significant separation between themselves and the Dallas Stars, and one of those teams chasing them in the playoff race here. So this is a big game for the Nashville Predators tonight at home. Now, they came out the other night, and Dallas played really well in the first couple of periods. I think by far was the better team, and Saros played well. They kicked it into high gear in the third period and won the game. But if you can win this one in regulation, that would be a pretty huge blow to the Stars at this point.
And do we know the last time they won 7 in a row?
I am guessing it was in the President's Trophy year at some time, but I don't even know that. I'd have to go back and look. That's my guess.
Yeah, it's probably a good guess.
Yeah.
It's possible since then.
Possible. I'd have to go back and look.
That's quite a streak. Yeah, it's again, when we talk about this stuff, it's kind of like, wow, really? They're in that position,
Yeah.
but they are. They are in Dallas. I still think is like the first 2 periods the other night. I'm like, okay. See, don't count Dallas out yet, because see, that team, very physical, very hard to score on. They've had all kinds of bad luck and injuries, but like they're coming into this game like they know they've got to flip the switch here, turn it on. Again, why that game was so impressive that the Preds end up winning the thing, because it took a lot. I think it took a lot of resolve to come back in that, the way that they were being outplayed in that game. So this has got to be absolute desperation time to the point you made there on Dallas' situation for the Stars.
And it's interesting, too, because we've been wondering how close the Predators could be to getting some bodies back in their lineup. And Luke Cunnin has come back in. He's played really well. But we talked to Matt Duchene yesterday here on the show, and basically made it sound like he's been skating, but just some things have not gone quite according to plan in terms of his recovery. And then yesterday afternoon, the Predators come out and announce Matt Duchene, Philip Forsberg, Brad Richardson, Ryan Ellis, Mark Borowiecki, and Lucas Spiza, who has been hurt for a while now. All of those players considered week to week with their current respective injuries. So not good news on that front, particularly when it pertains to Philip Forsberg. You're wondering maybe if he was close to getting back in, saying week to week with Philip Forsberg at this point. Now, what does week to week mean? Does that mean next week he's available? We'll find out. But week to week is never something you want to hear.
Yeah, that's not a good term. There was a week to week this year that was
very short.
Who was that?
I want to say that was Saros. I think Saros was week to week, and then he was back.
Nah, it was before him, though.
Wasn't Yossi, was it? His wasn't considered week.
They've had so many injuries, I'm trying to
Yeah.
keep up. I think so. Somebody put this out on Twitter yesterday. I think it was Corey Massasak, who used to work for NHL.com, and he says now covers the Devils. 2 players for the Predators have played every game this year. 2 of them. Colton Sissons, Victor Arvidsson. The only 2 players that have played in every game for the Preds this year.
It's actually kind of amazing on the Arvidsson front,
I know.
too.
It is.
He would not be one of the guys you would pick. Yeah, the Forsberg thing, that's tough. For him to go to week, I mean, they're 3-0 without him here, but it might be tough to sustain.
Yeah.
That's
Been your best player all year long? Yeah.
When did Yarncroke miss a game? I don't remember that.
I think he did miss maybe 1 or 2. Yeah.
I bet you they lost.
They probably did. Probably did. He's been MVP this year, for goodness sake. 11 goals for Callie Yarncroke. We'll see what happens in Pick to Click with that coming up a little bit later. Maybe you take him. Maybe I take him. We'll see.
I took him and it worked out for me all right the other day.
That's right.
Oh, you're going to try to take him away from me? You get one win and you're going to get all cocky, huh?
Yeah.
What's the order today?
I believe you are first today.
I haven't even – oh, okay. Well, then I guess you might be SOL.
Yes,
Because
it
I
takes
haven't really
Yarncroke
been
off the board.
I think I'm last today.
Ooh.
Yeah. So even more challenging to continue this streak.
Were you first the other day?
I was.
Okay. Huh. You never know.
We'll see what happens there. But, yeah, not good news on the injury front yesterday for the Nashville Predators. We'll see how quickly they can bounce back from that. But, like I said, I mean, a big game for the Press tonight, and they found a way to play. And I know we talked about it a little bit yesterday, but hearing Duchesne kind of describe what the forecheck has been like from his vantage point and how the Predators have gone about executing that more efficiently and being more confident with the way they're playing on the forecheck. I think it's been something that even if you're not a hockey nerd like I am and you're just a casual hockey fan, I think you can notice when you watch them play how different they look, how aggressive they've been in forcing turnovers and kind of going the other way and getting the puck back, playing more often with the puck in this stretch recently. I think it's been pretty noticeable in their game. So I know Duchesne kind of got deep in the weeds yesterday with the F3s and the F2s and the forward, responsibilities on plays like that sometimes people can be like, what's he talking about? But I think it's been a pretty glaring difference in this team, how good they've been on the forecheck and how relentless they've been and what a difference that's made in the bottom line of their results.
Well, I mean, we talked early this season about they never sustain anything, and opponents are just cycling on them, and they're not able to to have any kind of forecheck, and that was one of the laundry list of things that weren't going well. So it's obviously the way this team's constructed. I mean, you have to be able to do that. They are not going up and down the ice and scoring at will like some of these other teams in the league. So this is something you have to do. And Duchesne's description was interesting. I think effort is probably again, it's sort of overstated, or it's used as a blanket statement on things. It's more than that. It's probably like the trust that he was talking about, chemistry that he was talking about. But that's kind of impressive, too, because they've had such lineup changes. So I think you have to give credit to the coaching, too, here for figuring some things out. And it's a big part of why they are where they are, is that they've been able to, keep pucks in and wear people out and be physical.
And then Ellie Tolvanen on a 6-game point streak right now as well, going for a 7-game streak tonight, whether it's via assist or via goal tonight. Ellie Tolvanen has been very good this year, specifically against the Dallas Stars. He's found a lot of success against them as of late, and obviously another chapter written in that book the other night. It's interesting. I really like, I love that line of Forsberg, Johansson, and Tolvanen. Now, obviously, with Forsberg not being available, they've had to switch it up, and they put Arvidsson up there, moving Tolvanen over to the left side on the left wing there. I mean, it's interesting from this standpoint because you've got Johansson out there with two guys that are not really the biggest. I mean, Tolvanen's 5'10", Arvidsson's about 5'7", 5'8", so it's not like you've got the biggest lineup out there, but they've still been able to play with some speed. That jumped out to me the other night in the game. Johansson had a few shifts where he was flying out there, and you don't really think of Ryan Johansson as a speed demon out there, and I'm not saying that he's, Victor Arvidsson or anything like that, but that line right now playing really fast, that's a good sign for the Predators. Tolvanen, he's got some wheels. He can move a little bit. We know about Arvidsson, but I thought the line playing really fast the other night against Dallas, especially in the third period, and that's how you got to play against this team. I mean, Dallas, if they have their druthers, they're not going to let your defenseman skate the puck up the ice at all. I think how in years past, that's how they've been really effective against the Predators, because they have really done a great job of kind of walling things off and making Roman Yossi make a decision of where to go with the puck rather than just carrying it up through the ice. They did that about halfway through the game the other night, and the Predators found a way to break through it and move the puck a lot better. But I'm interested to see, like, if that's going to be the way Dallas plays and they try to wall your defenseman off from kind of joining the rush that way, can your forwards take advantage of that and play with some speed? They did that pretty well in the third period the other night.
And there's no reason to expect anything but Saros tonight.
Oh,
right?
no. Yeah, I would expect Saros to be in there. You got to. I mean, you've got to ride the hot hand at this moment. Now, maybe he comes back down the earth tonight and you reevaluate on Saturday against Chicago and put Pekka back in, but I wouldn't think there's any chance that we'll see anybody but Saros to start the game tonight for the Predators. So I think that's the way you've got to handle it if you're John Hines.
What's the longest – we talk about the longest winning streak. I'd like to know the longest streak of excellence that Saros has had in his career. He's had some. For
has.
Sure. Last year he had a really good one before the pause.
Yep.
But he's on one right now.
He is on a heater right now. There's no question about that. Can he keep it up? And when it inevitably stops at some point, what does that look like? Is it a major falling off the cliff, or is a minor regression back to the mean of numbers? That would be, I think, the interesting question to figure out. If it's the latter of those options, I still think you're probably in a pretty good spot if you're the Nashville Predators. But you brought up John Hines there and the decisions that he's made. I want to ask this question, and you can respond on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Has the last run the Predators have been on, has this winning streak that they've been on, changed your thought at all on John Hines and how you feel about him as the coach moving forward? Let us know on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We'll discuss it next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Make sure you're tuning in later this morning at 8:45 for your chance to participate in Pred's Pick to Click and win a prize pack brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. We'll have that exciting opportunity coming up for you at 8:45. The Predators taking on the Dallas Stars tonight at Bridgestone Arena, and Robby Stanley going for 2 wins in a row in our competition here in Pred's Pick to Click. So you'll have that opportunity coming up at 8:45 this morning here on Robby and Rexrode. Joe, let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, which you can send in your text as well, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Jim texts in and says, I don't know that Arvidsson has hardly played any games this season. Trade him already.
Dang, Arvy hater.
I mean,
He's
played in every game this season.
I don't know that he's not played in any games, Jim.
I think he's been there the whole time. Now, has he been as productive as you would like him to be? No. He's got 18 points in 37 games, 5 goals in 37 games. That is not what we are used to seeing from Victor Arvidsson. So, I hear you on the he's been disappointing part. But he's played every game, 37 games.
He's had some bad luck.
He has.
Set up Tolvanen to set Tolvanen and you up.
He should have had a goal the other night, and then Hudobin made a ridiculous save, diving across the crease.
The fact that wasn't ESPN top 10, and some of the ones we saw that were.
Yeah, just a travesty.
A joke.
Oversight.
I think that they just did they just say, hey, let's take 2 hockey highlights. Just pick, or one.
I think they've got one guy doing it. He's just sitting there in a control room somewhere and be like, yeah, that looks good. Put it in top 10.
They've got teams of people on all the other sports, including grainy. They got someone for grainy
cell phone video,
middle school soccer video person.
Yeah.
But yeah, one person on hockey.
That'll change when ESPN gets the hockey rights.
You would think so,
that
right?
Will change.
Once it's their inventory,
that
changes things a little bit.
Joe, what do you think of how to evaluate John Hines during the streak? Because it's interesting. You've been pretty consistent on this when we've talked about it all season long. There were a lot of fans that were frustrated with John Hines, a lot of fans that weren't impressed with John Hines to begin with when David Poile made the hire. And I think part of the credit that you've got to give for this turnaround has been the job that he's done, kind of managing things through this, developing players and making sure younger players are ready to come in and contribute. And also, just kind of his voice in the locker room. I mean, Roman Josi was on with Jared yesterday and just talked about their belief in John Hines as well. I think the players really like John Hines, and that message has resonated with them up until this point. How would you evaluate John Hines this season, and how much credit do you think he deserves for the turnaround that we've seen?
Yeah, with hockey, I kind of look at it like hockey and honestly anything but football. I look at kind of the same in that I think the schematic part of it is overrated, right? I mean, you have to be able to, most people couldn't even do what a hockey coach does in terms of calling out line shift, right, and stuff like that. But once everyone's has the basics, then you can do it.
Sure.
Or how much variance is there really in these systems? I know there is.
There's some,
and you're finding matchups and all that stuff. But we're hearing a lot of people who know more than I do about hockey talking about, look at these players and their production under Hines. How is that not on him? When Peter Laviolette was here, there's people putting out these. Look at the blobs. Look at the blobs on this map. This proves that Peter Laviolette knows nothing about hockey.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people wear on people. I mean, but hockey coaches are the most fired, right?
Oh yeah,
they are the most fired. So why is that? I think because you can't fire the players. I just think it's something that people go to way too quickly, and sometimes changing the voice is worthwhile. But how many in the NFL sometimes it's okay, this guy's offense is terrible, or defense, or there's a schematic reason to switch coaches. How often in hockey is that why? It's this system it's archaic system. I mean, it's the same game.
It's rare. I mean, I think what you see a lot of times in hockey is there are coaches who are more offensively minded and coaches that are more defensively minded. Like
Sure.
Ken Hitchcock, you're going to be playing a lot of defense,
Well,
and you're going to clog things up.
You go from Trotz to Laviolette.
Exactly.
You go from a defensive coach to an offensive
You see
coach.
teams do that a lot, where if whatever happened, and that's not just a hockey thing. I think they do that in football too.
Yeah.
I mean, if the defensive guy didn't work, bring in the offensive guy and see if that works. I think you see that as much or more in hockey than you do any other sport.
So that's it. It's basically the philosophical stance. Yeah. But look, I mean, so you asked the question, do I think he deserves credit? Yeah. And I've heard people also say maybe it's the way things have worked out have helped him because he's always most of his career he's been a developmental hockey guy working with young players, and now he's got all these young guys, so maybe he reaches them better. I get, I mean, that's possible, I guess. But to me, he's pretty even keel, and he's kind of been preaching a lot of the same things. And when you see a team start to do the things that were talked about for a long time, I don't see how you don't credit the coach.
Yeah.
It's up to him to get them to do the stuff. They're doing the stuff.
They are doing the stuff. That is for sure. Let's go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in Rob from Franklin, who wants to weigh in. Rob, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's interesting you talk about the dynamics of a coach. And if you look at different sports, that the dynamics of a coach, define the team. Take Vrabel, and I'll bring it back to the Preds in a sec, but take Vrabel. I'm good friends with a person that played with him for years, and in the Patriots locker room, he described him as an absolute piece of work because he was the biggest, the strongest, and he could wield whatever sword he wanted in that locker room. He wasn't a kind, gentle dude, if you know what I mean. He was a complete turd. So, and he's brought a lot of that attitude into the Titans, and I think has defined, at least a little bit, how they do have an identity. So the Predators, the beginning of this season, John Hines, who has the personality of a banana, brings in not a lot of identity and not a lot of passion, and it's just even keel great. One of the reasons why Laviolette got fired was because he brought in a lot of passion, demanded a lot of attention and to detail on different elements, and the bottom line is that team had a lot of identity. The problem with that is that wears out after about three and a half years, and you'll see that he'll get fired in about 2.5 years because it'll wear out. What I think the difference is, however, is, and to think on Crispy and why they've had some success over the last 5-6 games, is they have had a pep in their step. The forecheck has been very, very good. And, the one point that Crispy brought up that I 100% agree with is that their puck management and their puck, call it control, has been so much better in the last 5 to 6 games. And you can see that, and if you take into account the fact that if you have the puck and they're chasing you, it's a big deal. And just one other point, and not to be that disagreeing guy, but in hockey you have 6 people on the ice, one of them goalie. Your goalie, you have a goalie coach, but the difference is in play and in structure, coach to coach, is massive. Take for instance, let's play in the defensive zone, where literally it's almost man-to-man. You've got the coverage, which you call the hot zone in front of the net that somebody sticks to, but then you follow people almost man-to-man. This is a zone coverage where people bunch down and try to block shots. This team blocks a lot more shots. The problem is I think the structure on the offensive side hasn't blended in the beginning of the season, but it's starting to now. And you can tell by the way that they cycle the puck, as a for instance. Watch them cycling the puck, even though they're going to get drilled, almost on a 2-to-1 ratio. Watch tonight the way they cycle the puck, and that's where you can see that John's scheme is coming together a little bit.
Hey, thanks for the call, Rob. We appreciate it. Yeah, it's one of those things where, and I agree with a lot of what he said there, but
yeah, there's variance for sure.
I'm not saying there's no variance, but I think some people act like there's just this massive difference. There's not.
Well, and I guess my point is like, is there a coach in this league who has a system that other coaches would be like, "Oh, what are you doing?
Right.
Get this out of here. This doesn't work in hockey."
Right.
I mean, now you do have to tailor. I think the best coaches tailor what they do to their personnel. I think that's a big thing. Any coach who is in any sport married to system, I think that's a mistake. And the best coaches say, this player needs to be doing this, and so I'm going to adjust it. So, yeah, I mean, I thought some good points, and the two words that really stick out to me from that whole call are turd and banana.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
But it was a good call.
There we go. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Nashville Predators. Preds assistant coach Dan Highnote will join us. That's coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby, Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. The Predators taking on the Dallas Stars tonight at Bridgestone Arena, going for 7 wins in a row. And to help us talk more about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Predators assistant coach Dan Hinote. Dan, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Oh, doing great, man. Just ready to get back at it.
I bet you are. And obviously, we talked a lot about your team this week, going for 7 wins in a row tonight. Dan, from your vantage point, watching this group battle through everything they've had to battle through from an injury standpoint and really turning this season around, how have you guys, from your vantage point, been able to do this? What stood out to you about this winning streak?
Well, I think, the team game has really come a long way, from the beginning of the season. I think, our physical play, like for instance, we keep stats on kind of the takes no talent type stuff that the players that any player can do. And against Dallas, we had 66 hits, and that's a crazy number. And the number that we keep track of, it's not necessarily something that, the NHL is going to break down. But my point is, when you have 66 hits, and these are coming from every single player on the team, it's an investment. Then by the third period, we're wearing, we wear teams down that way. It's an investment that we make, and why we've been such a good third period team. But anyway, to make the long story even longer, our team game has really come together with all the guys pulling on the rope the same way. And it's been fun, so much fun to be a part of.
So, Dan, what else in that? Do you have other stats in there that would not be found on a box score, effort-related stats that you can share with us?
Well, we had 16 blocks, 24 takeaways. Our 50-50, we were 65% in our 50-50 battles, which is a large number as well. And basically, it's at the end of the day, it's just telltale of what kind of effort you're getting on a night-to-night basis, and that sheet has been great for us during this stretch, and so it's getting the guys to understand that these things are an investment in our success. And in the beginning of the season, we weren't getting wins, and we were getting the effort, and so it was kind of a harder sell. And now this hard work is paying off in wins and pucks in the net and, and good things. So it's a lot easier to sell, but they've seen the success, so they're fully bought in now. And it's, like I said, it's just a fun game to watch.
Yeah, because that was going to be my next question. Were these these numbers way down earlier, but apparently not. So it's been pretty consistent in that way, in the effort related things.
Yeah, it has been. It hasn't been across the board like it is now. You get 3/4 of the team playing, and then some nights you get a full effort, but it just wouldn't go our way or whatever. But over the last probably 15, 20 games, it's been really good effort across the board. You don't always get the wins and you don't always get the bounces, but when you're keeping track of these types of things and the numbers are good, then that at least you're getting the type of effort you need to win in this league.
Predators assistant coach Dan Hinote on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And Dan, we've talked the last couple of days about the forecheck and how relentless it's been with your group. And Matt Duchesne kind of broke that down a little bit for us yesterday here on the show. You don't have to get into the specific X's and O's of exactly what you guys are doing out there, but from your vantage point, when the forecheck is at its best, what's working really well with this forward group from your standpoint there?
Well, we're surprisingly physical. Yeah, and I don't mean surprisingly that these players, but we're not a big unit up front, compared to some of the teams in our division. But we're tenacious and we're mean and we're physical. And that what happens, like I said, you get 20 hits in the first, 20 hits in the second. By the third, D don't want to go back for that puck anymore. They just they'll either say, hey, go ahead, you can have it first touch, or they're just getting rid of it a little bit quicker. And maybe they're not making the clean play anymore. And now we're able to establish an offensive zone attack because things just didn't connect for them. And usually they don't connect for them because of the commitment that we made in the first and the second to play that style, and our guys are heavy. heavy over pucks. You watch our fourth line. Whenever they get control of the puck, it's at some point it's going to find its way to the net. And the same, you could say that with every line lately. So, it kind of builds on that. Cunnin coming back in the lineup, I think he had like 8 or 9 hits last game. And he's a physical force, which makes room for Granlund and makes room for Yarncroc, and and there's kind of a cumulative effect of the more physical and the harder you play and the harder you are to play against, the better the team will do as the game wears on.
So, Dan, with some of these young guys, a part of what you're talking about there, but a lot of them really coming on beyond Tolvanen, do you think that has had a positive effect on some of the veterans too? A little bit of follow the lead of the kids, or even a little bit of like, hey, if I want to be in this lineup, I need to lay some more hits on people and things like that.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, they've got a ton of energy. You can feel it in the locker room. You can feel it on the bench. Obviously, you can see it on the ice. The young guys have done a great job stepping in, when asked. And this is the type of season where if you weren't deep, if you didn't have good young prospects coming into your lineup, courtesy of injury, you would fall by the wayside. And so we've been very fortunate to have a deep stable of good hockey players because they've all played. I mean, I don't think there's anyone that's ever come up in the taxi squad that hasn't played. So that hasn't done well when they've played. So, that's been a huge boost for us because you get new energy, you get new life. I mean, this season with playing basically every other day, it could get really stagnant if you didn't have a team that really liked each other and didn't have good energy. But we have that here, so we've been really fortunate, and the young guys have been a huge part of that.
Dan, obviously a young guy that has been a huge part of that on the score sheet has been Eeli Tolvanen on a 6-game point streak right now. Had the game winner the other night in overtime. I think just watching him for the last few years, we've always known about the offensive ability and the shot that he has, and that continues to shine through here. But I've been pretty blown away about his play away from the puck, how physical he's been, his play in the defensive zone. When you look at Tolvanen and his all-around game, are we witnessing potentially the start of something very special here in Nashville with his game overall?
Yeah, I mean, depending on your definition of special, he's been a huge surprise for me in the style of play. I always knew he was skilled and I knew he had a great shot, but I had no idea he was so physical. I had no idea he was so responsible. And he's kind of one of those players where you're like, how does the puck always end up bouncing to this guy, and how does this puck follow this kid around the ice? But it's because he thinks the game at a really good level. So he's predicting, and so what seems like luck is usually just him being really smart and kind of understanding where the puck is probably going to go, and then half the time it does. And so I've been really surprised, I guess you'd say, with how well-rounded of a player he is and has become. Like, I mean, I think I'm just looking at the sheet, he had 9 hits. Against Dallas, and he scores the game winner. And he makes the play on the power play, and he has some other good plays throughout the game. But he wears you. He gets you on a bunch of different ways. He's going to finish. He's going to hip. He had a hip check the other day in the middle of the ice, which was awesome. And but no one expects that from a guy like him. And then all of a sudden he's a heavy hitter. So it's been great. But just kind of watching his evolution this year.
Predators assistant coach Dan Highnote has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Dan, appreciate you taking time to join us this morning, and good luck tonight against the Dallas Stars.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Dan Highnote, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. The Predators going for 7 wins in a row tonight against the Dallas Stars, and it is interesting to think about, the different stats that they keep up with that don't find their way into your average box score, and kind of highlighting there, 66 hits, how they tracked it the other night, how physical the Predators have been. And you don't think of Eeli Tolvanen as a guy that's all that physical, but he's been throwing his weight around a little bit as of late. Good all-around game from Eeli Tolvanen. The offense getting the attention right now, deservedly so. But like I told Dan, I've been blown away with how good he's been in other aspects of the game as well.
Yeah, and when you have the skilled guy who makes plays like that, kind of like young guys, can like we talked about with them. I think young guys can sometimes get that energy going, and also maybe give a little kick to the veterans in the butt, like, hey,
Yeah.
young guys coming for your job. But also when the skilled guys lay hits on people, that's infectious too.
When we come back, we will switch gears and look ahead at the Final Four coming up this weekend in the world of college basketball. Taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. It's time to save cash fast with Nashville's Best Deals. Go to theGameNashville.com and click on the Nashville's Best Deals banner to get half off a $20 gift card from Grain and Berry in Hillsborough Village. Grain and Berry is Nashville's superfood cafe where healthy meets delicious. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game, streaming live on YouTube, on Twitch, and on Periscope as well, taking you through this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks to Predators assistant coach Dan Highnote for joining us in the last segment, and we'll have Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic joining us to begin the 8 o'clock hour. Some interesting news yesterday regarding the NCAA and the Supreme Court, so we'll get to some of that with her coming up to begin the 8 o'clock hour. Right now, looking ahead to the Final Four, taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Now, we talked about it a little bit yesterday, and we do have resident basketball expert Elijah Campbell with us today on the program as well. So, Elijah, I'll start with you. As you look ahead at this Final Four with Gonzaga taking on UCLA, you've got Houston and Baylor in the battle of the state of Texas. Obviously, I think everybody would say that Houston's got a better chance to take down Baylor than UCLA would have to take down Gonzaga. But what's it going to take from UCLA, in your opinion, to hang in there with Gonzaga and make this a game? Because that's been quite a challenge for teams as of late to even make it a game with Gonzaga.
Outside of divine intervention, I think the first thing that UCLA needs is going to be able to keep
Divine intervention.
Yeah, is to keep Gonzaga just from making layups on them. I mean, like in the half court, Gonzaga against USC was still being able to scheme up layups. You got to make them at least forced to make them shoot tough jump shots. Gonzaga's still a great jump shot shooting team. I mean, Corey Kispert's the best shooter in the country. The guy's making like 45% of his threes on 6 or 7 attempts per game, which is just astronomical.
Even though his shot's a line drive.
It is a line drive.
Maybe they ought to give him more looks from three.
I mean, I don't know. So, his feet are always set. That's one thing I like about Corey Kispert's shot. His feet are always set, and it's a good, very fundamentally sound shot until you see how it's like shot, but it goes in. I mean, it is a little bit of a line drive. But if you can just make them shoot jumpers and not let them just get layups, I mean, that's much easier said than done, obviously. But that's one thing they did against Michigan really well. I mean, all of Hunter Dickinson's post-ups, he ended up shooting 7-8 feet away from the basket instead of putting his armpits in the rim. I mean, you got to be able to at least play some interior defense against Gonzaga to at least make those looks hard. I mean, and Gonzaga's going to hit shots. I mean, this is one of the best offensive teams we've ever seen in college basketball. The way they pass, the way they cut, they're going to generate good looks, and they're going to be able to get open jumpers. You just got to hope they miss them and don't let them get second or third chance opportunities. That's the biggest thing, at least, to keep them in check offensively.
The difference between Dickinson and Timmy is that Dickinson can go one way, and UCLA had the scouting report.
Yep.
Yeah, there were a couple times where you just go over your other shoulder and you dunk on him, and instead he's throwing he actually made like 2 or 3 like ridiculously hard shots.
He already looked uncomfortable.
But Timmy will go either way on you and
he's ambidextrous.
Carve you up. Yeah. They're gonna have to shoot crazy well too. Juzang. Jaquez was not good against Michigan. They still won that game. He was bad.
Offensively, really, there wasn't anyone that was good other than Juzang. I mean, Tiger Campbell played all right. He didn't shoot particularly well, but he was at least able to generate some offense when they needed it, and at least be able to generate some open looks. I mean, in UCLA, you're not going to beat Gonzaga by scoring 51 points. I'll go ahead and say that right now. You can't have an effective field goal shooting percentage of 41% and expect to win that game. I mean, Franz Wagner might have gone 1 for 10 against him, but I don't expect Corey Kispert to. Or even if he does, you still have to deal with Suggs and Drew Timme and Andrew Nembhard and Joel Ayayi. I mean, it's number one, I would say, is still divine intervention if UCLA wants to beat Gonzaga. That's their best shot, realistically.
Well, I mean, at this point, they may have had a little already.
They might have
used
some of those
all
Alabama free throws. Somebody was pulling the string on
Alabama
those.
free throws. Franz Wagner shooting that game-winning three about a foot short. Eli Brooks airballing the putback layup from underneath the basket. I mean, there's already been a lot of divine intervention, and this run is getting, damn near biblical at this point because of some of the help that's gone along the way. Getting to play Abilene Christian in the second round,
John Wooden.
Yeah.
Yes.
John Wooden from beyond.
Pulling the strings. That's
John
right.
Wooden and the endless enthusiasm of Bill Walton working from afar.
That's right. Absolutely. And then you look at the other matchup. I am fascinated between Baylor and Houston. I mean, obviously it's a 1 versus a 2. So it's a much different scenario than we're talking about in the first game in the Final Four with Gonzaga and UCLA. But this Baylor-Houston game to me is interesting. Like Houston, I've watched a little bit of them in the tournament so far. I'm not really excited to watch them play again because of their style of play, but I do think they've got a chance. If Baylor has an off shooting night, you've got a chance if you're Houston to win this game. Obviously, a much better chance than I would give UCLA, but really pulling for Baylor and Gonzaga from an entertainment value. That's for sure.
Might be a rock fight in that one for sure. But, yeah, Baylor-Gonzaga, we've been waiting on it. I think most people would want to see that. Although maybe some people are rooting against Gonzaga just to see them get upset. I mean, Indiana fans, the Indiana angle on this whole Final Four is interesting. It's in Indiana. Indiana fans are clutching to, 1976. And because, I mean, really, Indiana is very much, to me, Tennessee football, except a much longer stretch of being okay. I mean, their they got to the final game the one year with Mike Davis right after Bobby Knight, so in 2002. But really, they haven't been a consistent contender for stuff like that since the early 90s under Bobby Knight. But they have the fan base, they have the facilities, the resources, all this stuff. So they're clutching to that. And then the Kelvin Sampson, he was part of the Indiana history of burying that program. I mean, Kelvin Sampson it's a very interesting thing now versus then. And some people have been retweeting or bringing back up the old articles from Kelvin Sampson's time, because if anybody remembers, it was all the phone calls. Now, it wasn't just that. And I know because Tom Crean followed him up, and it was bad. Like, there was, no one going to class. Like, it was a bad program under Kelvin. He drove the program into the ground, but he was kind of treated like a villain of all that's good in the world for just basically saying, screw you, I'm going to make all these calls that are impermissible.
Yeah.
And now it does kind of sound funny, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
The phone calls. I mean, some of the rules he broke are not rules anymore, too, by the way. So
Did the FBI wiretap his phone, too?
No, that's the thing. I mean,
Dang.
So you got Kelvin Sampson, who is vilified, get out. I mean, again, there was a Pat Forty piece that someone shared, and it was like, he'll never work again in college athletics, right, and stuff like that. Here he is, and we have Will Wade, who's just always going to be the example of like, oh, yeah, the NCAA does a great job of enforcing rules.
Still under investigation, by the way.
Yeah, well,
still going.
The FBI is still
taking a long, hard look at Will Wade.
Yeah, we got the Supreme Court talking college sports this week. We got the FBI just keeps using resources.
A lot of government resources involved in college sports at the moment.
To investigate a college basketball coach. Yeah.
Thank God. Yeah, now I can sleep at night knowing that we're listening to Will Wade's phone calls and what he's doing to get Javonte Smart.
Yeah.
I can sleep a lot better at night.
But it's interesting with Kelvin Sampson now, sort of. It's like a redemption story, and obviously he's done really good work at Houston. But the way he was vilified back then and now, it's just changed a lot. It's interesting.
Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Brian in Portland texts in and says, Kispert's shot reminds me a lot of Ray Allen's, the way that he always has got his feet set and the line drive that goes in. Between him and Timmy, there's no way that UCLA has a chance.
You agree with that? I think Ray Allen had a little more lift on his shot than
Allen had more lift, but he's correct about the footwork.
That's a good point.
And that's what makes Kispert's shot so great. Yeah, the quick release and that, just watch this weekend. Anytime Corey Kispert has that ball, even before the ball's in his hands, his feet are going to get set. And he's a threat to shoot it the millisecond it touches his hands. And that's what makes it so good. That's how he's able to get off 6.5, 7 shots a game. From beyond the arc, even though every scouting report in the country says, don't let this guy shoot the three, run him off the three-point line. He's still able to shoot that many in a game because his shot is so quick and his feet are always going to get set.
Ray Allen, responsible for the greatest moment in the history of my sporting life.
Yeah. I was hoping that you would bring that up.
Greatest shot in NBA history. Game 6, 2013.
I was not a big fan of that moment, but it was pretty incredible. I must say. It was pretty incredible.
Slid across the floor, got some carpet burn. It was great. Loved it.
Speechless.
That's right. When we come back, we will get into a little bit more of the college sports world with Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic. Some interesting developments yesterday between the NCAA and the Supreme Court. We'll talk to Nicole about that coming up here in just a few minutes. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the wholesaling studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, hour number 3 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby, Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on YouTube, on Periscope, and on Twitch as well. And we are pleased to go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in friend of the show, Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic. Nicole, how you doing? How are things going?
Things are good. Things are good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning. Nicole, we'll get to the developments yesterday between the NCAA and the Supreme Court here in just a few minutes, but I want to start with just your thoughts on both the men's and women's tournament that we've seen so far from your viewing experience. What have been your impressions of the tournament? What stood out to you so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think didn't quite know what to expect with the contained environments and the bubbles and all of that. But the quality of play has been great. I think you've seen a lot of upsets and really kind of thrilling finishes in both the men's and the women's tournament. I keep coming back to it's just such a shame. The weight room issues and all of the other things of the women's tournament really overshadowing everything, but especially the fact that it's actually been an incredibly great women's tournament. And, women's basketball is finally in a point where, it's not just UConn and then there's this huge gap with everybody else.
I agree. It's been a great tournament, other than the horrific officiating at the end of the UConn-Baylor game. But
he's really upset about this, Nicole. He's been talking about it nonstop for 48 hours.
I mean, well, I'll be honest. When I saw the play, and I watched it live, and I was like, yeah, that looked a little physical. It was cool. But I mean, that is one of those where I guess sometimes still photos can exaggerate something. But my gosh, I mean, it's like elbows on her face and arm. But anyway, I mean, bad officiating is part of the deal, I guess, with college sports. And here's a transition. So is the talk of athletes getting compensated, Nicole. And I actually just, oh my gosh, actually, I tweeted this great explainer from you and Andy, except I didn't actually provide the link. So let me apologize for that. I will fix that right now. But you guys had a great piece setting up this Supreme Court case and differentiating it from, and I think some people are missing this, from the name, image, likeness legislation in various states, that's proceeding independent of this. But this is more about schools. So can you lay that out for the listeners? This case that the Supreme Court just listened to yesterday and provided some opinions on.
Yeah, I think that, it all kind of sounds connected, and it ultimately is. It's sort of about athletes receiving more than just a scholarship. But yeah, this whole Supreme Court case is, I mean, again, the justices could decide to rule more broadly, but it's essentially about educational-related expenses. So we're talking about, like, the cost of, we're talking about internships and, potentially, like, equipment that they might use for, something for school or tangentially related to school, whatever. But educationally related benefits. So there's certain things that were used as examples in this. But these are what are provided from the school, what the school is allowed to do. When we talk about, what's happening in Congress and different state laws, you're talking about, like, third parties. You're talking about, a T-shirt brand that wants to pay someone $200 to post something on Instagram. You're not talking about what the schools can do. There's going to probably be some significant barriers about what the schools, they're not allowed to directly, pay these athletes in that setting. They can, it's entirely third parties, entirely endorsements, sponsorships, and that's kind of, against exactly that model. But this isn't, again, these schools just paying players for being athletes. There would be parameters about, like, what is allowed, but they're basically trying to figure out, is there an arbitrary number where you could cap, where you could say, the NCAA wants to say, like, okay, you can cover up to $5,000 of educational-related expenses, but nothing more. And the question is, well, how did they come up with that number? What is the right number? Is, for other athletes or other students on campus, like, there's no cap on stuff like that. So it's basically questions of that. But I understand why they're being conflated for a lot of people, but they're not. And it might ultimately, like, kind of inform what Congress does in terms of, again, if they rule broadly. But technically, these are different things, and the Supreme Court case could end up being very narrow and about just, like, a couple of examples of the types of things you would spend money on for an athlete related to schoolwork, related to internships.
Right, like the Ed O'Bannon case basically led to cost of attendance. I mean, it was pretty narrow.
Yes.
In the end, which didn't get to the Supreme Court. Okay, so I mean, I love some of the the tweeted quotes from people, especially like some of the stuff NCAA lawyers say is just, it's amazing. And I don't know if this was your tweet or someone else, but I think a lawyer was like, well, if this happens, then they will spend more time on the athletics and less on academics. Which is a great week to say that when we have, like, basketball games going to, like, 1 a.m. Eastern on a Tuesday. I mean, I love that. But I do wonder, Nicole, like, I feel like name, image, likeness should be as open market as possible, and I hope it gets there, and I have no idea if it will. But is it possible that this stuff, this is a Sherman antitrust, basically, like the foundation of this, right? Is it possible that this could actually hurt college athletics? I mean, I hate to take that side of it, but I do wonder, like, if this isn't narrow and I guess you sort of open the floodgates, as one of the justices said yesterday. Is it possible that this could actually kind of foul things up?
Well, that's, I think, what you could tell that that's something that the justices were thinking about, because they clearly understand the issues of amateurism, and, like, they clearly, could see through a lot of like the NCAA's arguments for it. Basically, you even heard them say like, just because you've done something for 100 years doesn't mean you should keep doing it. All of those types of things. But they also did seem to say, hey, there's a ton of benefits from this system. And college sports are important to a lot of people. They provide opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. Like, do we want to blow the whole thing up? Like, what is the end game here? Like, they were asking those types of things, which, certainly gives you pause, right, about just how far they're willing to go and whether or not maybe they will stay really narrow so that they don't blow up the whole system, even though, again, they seem to understand it, right? And we heard a lot of very pointed critiques of, kind of exploitation and, coaches' salaries have ballooned, yet, the athletes have not been able to make money out of, just how much, money has flowed into college sports in the last decade. It's not going to the players. Like they made all of those points, so they certainly understand it. But there's a reason why certain cases make it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and there's usually like there's a global issue, but there's also something really specific that people feel can make a point, and that's what kind of ultimately leads the Supreme Court to take on certain cases. So very curious to see how this plays out, because you do have those competing kind of that tug of war between wanting, to look at these issues of exploitation. Obviously, you have different ideologies on the court, but you have those who support free markets and don't want, to restrain the restraints of trade. And you also have people who, talk about workers and the workers' rights. And so you have all of that, which is also part of the reason that, Congress, you have a bipartisan effort on NIL. But, again, it's like, do you want to blow up the whole system? That's ultimately what the question will be. And if they decide not to, then, it's probably going to be a very narrow ruling.
Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And Nicole, just I think it's kind of interesting that we've gotten to this point in college sports anyway. And I'm kind of looking at a line from a piece that you were involved in on The Athletic yesterday that says, quote, either way, the direction of college sports will be shaped significantly by the Supreme Court and by Congress, a sentence I'm not sure I could have imagined typing 10 years ago. So it is amazing from that standpoint that here we are with all this litigation tied up in Congress and now hearing oral arguments in the Supreme Court, and that all of this centers around college athletics.
Yeah, and that we got to a point where it has to be this way.
Yeah.
I think that's what's really stunning. And I've got a piece up in The Athletic today. I talked to a bunch of conference commissioners and athletic directors, more than 24, around the country anonymously about the state of everything and kind of coming out of the women's tournament, how they feel about Mark Emmert, the NCAA president. And an issue that kept coming up in my conversations was just the reactive nature of the NCAA to everything, and the fact that they didn't figure out NIL 5 years ago, that they weren't in front of any of these issues. I mean, you can't necessarily control like the courts, but it didn't need to come to the point where, we're right up against these deadlines where states are going to implement NIL laws. There's no federal legislation passed at this point, and there's not even NCAA legislation passed. And again, it's going to be happening for them. Something that they don't control is going to happen to the NCAA. Because there was no action on this for years. You knew that this was heading this direction. So I think that there's a lot of frustration around that, because, again, like you don't want these things, especially if you're someone who's spent your entire career in college sports. Do you really wanted to like totally just like hand this off to the government and let them do what they want and just kind of put you in whatever rules and constraints that they choose? Like, that's not what people want. They wanted to have a say in this. They wanted to be proactive and think about this creatively. And that didn't happen. So it really is, I don't think you can overstate it, how jarring it is that it's come to this.
So, look, Mark Emmert he's getting a lot of heat here. He deserves a lot of heat. Is it simplistic, though, to put it all on him? I don't think he's been a good leader at all. I think that there's still culture things here with the NCAA that I don't know that, it's as simple as you get him out of there and you'll have much better leadership. Am I wrong?
I think that that's what people are wrestling with. I think that, some of the stuff that, they think about the way that Mark Emmert has led, I think they also look at kind of the uppermost leadership and the way that the governance structure is set up with the Board of Governors, which is a group of mostly presidents from all three divisions. And that is a very slow-moving body, right? And so there are certain dynamics involved in just the uppermost levels of the NCAA that, a lot of people I talk to feel, really could use a look at reforming and just restructuring and figuring out the easiest way to make this governing body of college athletics more nimble and able to respond to stuff and be proactive on issues. But I think that there are a lot that people feel with Mark specifically, the way, certain things about communication, the way that he's responded to issues, the current issues and this kind of like surge of discontent was stemming out of how he responded to the women's tournament issues. I mean, I don't think anyone's saying, he was responsible for the weight room issues, the differences in testing, all these different pieces, but it took like days for him to sort of seem to understand it and to apologize and sort of own parts of it. There was a lot of deflecting early, and people just got very frustrated with that. And so there are certain elements things that do fall on his shoulders, and then certain other pieces that are more structural issues. But I think that people feel in that position, you're constrained by a lot of things because of the membership organization. But if you had a different leader, if you had someone who had a vision, who was proactive, you can shape the direction of things and respond to things better, communicate with your membership better, things like that. And like people brought up just kind of how they found out, like the fall NCAA championships were canceled last year in a tweet. There are some things that, that I do think you can easily fix if you have a different person in charge and kind of, again, you have to look at that structure at the very top of how major decisions get made in that system. But yeah, there's just a lot of frustration. And again, I think people have been pretty clear about like how much blame they put on Mark specifically, how much they put just on whoever is ultimately, the leader of this organization and makes a lot of money to be the leader of this thing. And then also, again, what is reasonable to expect from that role. And, I just think that the idea of a vision, multiple people brought up this idea of honestly, like a job, like a review, like any sort of process like that, where, you would start a year and say, here are your goals, here's what you're going to accomplish, and be held accountable for that. Like there's not transparency around any of that related to, what people expect from him, and what he is essentially evaluated on. So there's a lot of pieces like that, kind of go a little bit beyond him specifically and into structural issues of how the governance model is set up and frustrations with that get exacerbated maybe by him personally or his personality or the way he responds to things.
Yeah, one quote in this, which I think is pretty much sums up his tenure. I don't think he's thinking of any of this beyond it being damage control. That's pretty much that sums up Mark Emmert pretty well, I'd say.
I think it does as well. Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Nicole, great stuff. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Nicole. Say hi to Red. Say hi to Red for us.
That's right.
That's Nicole's dog.
That's right.
I heard Red in the background.
Absolutely. When we come back, we'll react to a little bit more of what Nicole had to say there and talk about how this could impact the future of college athletics. That's coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5. The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks to Nicole Auerbach from The Athletic for joining us in the last segment. Joe Rexrode.
She did text an apology that Red was acting up, and I was like,
there's no need for an apology.
I was like, every radio hit I do, there is a dog barking in the background.
Correct.
Who cares?
Yeah.
I liked hearing from
I think
Red.
it adds a nice element to it.
And the fact that, you know, your name's Nicole Auerbach and you have a dog named Red, it's pretty cool.
It is pretty awesome. It's pretty amazing. Joe, what did you think of what we discussed with Nicole about the NCAA making oral arguments yesterday with the Supreme Court and about where this could be heading and the future of college athletics as a result from it?
Well, I've said all along, I love college athletics. I want it to stay the same. So I don't want this to be blunt. The argument from the NCAA to this particular case, the NCAA lawyers, is people will stop wanting to follow and be fans of their product if they think that these are paid laborers, that this is basically minor league sports. To an extent, I do buy that. I mean, I think if it's just paid athletes, then I think there's some truth to that. Now, I still think, you know, if the LSU football fan, the Alabama football fan, the Tennessee football fan who bleeds that color their entire life, they're just going to walk away because there's some money, I don't buy that. What I really don't buy is that, and the Olympics completely prove me right, that if these kids, these college athletes, can make money off of their talents on Instagram, by signing autographs, by doing camps, all these things that they should have been allowed to do for decades, that's going to ruin it. I don't think that at all. People said that this would happen to the Olympics. Oh, we can't have Mary Lou Retton doing a cereal commercial before. She's an amateur. No one gives a crap. The Olympics is still, and these people now have the money to train. They make money off commercials, and it's been totally fine. And it would be the exact same thing in college athletics. But this particular case that is in front of the Supreme Court, I mean, it's interesting. If you can open it up to where the schools are paying, and then what happens is then they compete with each other.
Yeah.
And I could see that messing up the model more than I would like to see it. To me, it's just open market, name, image, likeness. Yes, of course there will be recruiting benefits given by people who say, hey, do a commercial for me. Here's $1 million. You're the 5-star quarterback. Oh, no, $1.1 million here. Great. Why does this bother people?
It's like that in any other business.
I'm all in. Yeah, it's America. And this is why, you know, so few things are bipartisan. You know, this is name, image, likeness is because it really is. If you believe in a free market in this country, then how could you possibly be against this?
Yeah, it's a great question. And like we brought up with Nicole, I think it's really an illustration of where we've gotten to in college athletics, that now here we are with litigation tied up in Congress about name, image, and likeness, and now the NCAA in front of the Supreme Court yesterday for the first time in 37 years, by the way, since the NCAA has been in front of the Supreme Court.
Right, and that was Oklahoma and Georgia suing the NCAA basically to get on TV. Back then, the NCAA was limiting television appearances, which is hilarious to think about.
Yeah.
So that case, which the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Oklahoma Board of Regents, opened it up now so you can be on TV all the time, which has opened up all this money, which has led to the networks for the conferences and all these things that have led to massive coach salaries and administrative salaries that make it impossible now to argue that they should still have the same antiquated amateurism system.
Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Nate, who wants to weigh in. Nate, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode.
Hey, guys. Fans will probably, at first, a little bit of them will be upset, but they'll come back like they always do. My main point here was going to be, I think it's a good thing for these higher-profile athletes to be paid that are going to go pro or projected to go pro. I think that if Isaiah Wilson had the resources to understand what he was about to get into and, you know, truly physically have what he was potentially going to have, yes, it wouldn't have been as much. But, and I know this is an extreme example, but I feel like Isaiah Wilson's main root of the problem, while we don't know for exact that he was getting paid a buttload of money and he didn't really know what to do. But I feel like if he had the resources there, he would have kind of, been helped through it a little better.
Thanks for the call, Nate. We appreciate it. I mean, I don't know. We'll never know specifically about Isaiah Wilson and exactly what that would have meant for him. I tend to believe, like, if there's always going to be, no matter how much money you're making in college football, like the opportunity, especially if you're a top guy like that, to make more money in the NFL, it's always going to be there.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. And yeah, I mean, I understand the thought there, because obviously you're talking about someone, and that's what happens is young people all of a sudden run into a whole bunch of money sometimes if they're good enough to be professional athletes, and that can have an adverse effect. But another thing with this that I think gets exaggerated so much is like, oh, Texas, like the oil money they're gonna pay,
outbid people,
right? They're gonna pay everybody $1 million. You know how bad of an investment that is, especially in college football?
Yeah.
I mean, the market will correct itself, and there will be Jadeveon Clowney would get paid, coming out to where he'd go to college. The money would find him through this. But again, did it not already?
Right. Well, I think that the college basketball part of it too, like, I think, the Zion Williamsons of the world, they'll get paid a lot of money to come play college basketball.
Yeah.
But, hey, look around. It's probably already happening anyway.
Well, I mean, Marvin Bagley,
Yeah.
I mean, his dad, like for their AAU team, got incredible amounts of Nike money.
Yeah.
And then he chooses that Nike school, Duke. Amazing coincidence.
Yeah.
I mean,
Crazy.
Yeah, so a lot of this stuff, I mean, look, I have to separate out. Like, I don't want fans to have a different experiences. I love college sports. It's so much fun. So the media experience is a little different. And so when I get excited about this stuff, I have to realize it is the reporter in me also just being fascinated to see this stuff all on the table.
Yeah.
And maybe fans don't love that idea, but I don't think it would take long to get used to it. And I think it would make it more fun, frankly.
We'll continue this conversation on the other side of the break. Tyler, hang with us. We'll get to your thoughts on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, coming up here in just a few minutes. Also get back into the Preds as well. All that coming up. But right now, I got to tell you about my friends at FanDuel Sportsbook and the tournament down to just 4 teams. Baylor, Houston, UCLA, Gonzaga left on the table. So if you've been watching from the sidelines, now's your chance to get in on the action. FanDuel Sportsbook is hooking you up with exclusive 40-1 odds on all 4 teams left in the bracket, even the favorites. That's right, 40-1 odds for new users on any team to win this round. That means you can win $200 on a $5 bet. I like Gonzaga a lot in this matchup with UCLA. Maybe you do too. That's on the table for you. All you got to do is download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and make your first deposit to unlock exclusive 40-1 odds. The app is so easy to use, and when you win, you'll get paid in as little as 24 hours. So just sign up with promo code ROB so they know that I sent you. That's FanDuel Sportsbook, promo code ROB. You must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. New users only. Must wager in designated offer market. $10 first deposit required. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. For problem gambling support, call 1-800-889-9789. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning. We're going to have Pred's Pick to Click coming up in about 12 minutes or so.
Oh, boy.
Presented by New Amsterdam Vodka. Robby Stanley goes for 2 in a row. You only have to wait mere moments to witness that, and you'll have your opportunity to participate as well coming up at 8:45.
I feel like Pick to Click, I think Pick to Click's a nice idea, and it's a nice, fun thing to do. But I feel like it's really gained prominence by your futility.
I think so.
I think you deserve credit for sucking as bad as you have this year.
I will take credit.
And now, here you are.
Here I am, a winner.
In the toilet bowl bracket.
Yes.
With a chance.
With a lot of momentum. Moving forward here.
If you
see if I can continue it.
If you
today.
Catch me and beat me, I will not play ever again.
That's right.
I just want you to know that.
That's cool. Right now, talking college athletics and the NCAA case against the heading to the Supreme Court with oral arguments yesterday. What does this mean for the future of college athletics? Let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Tyler, who wants to weigh in. Tyler, thanks for calling into Robby and Rexrode.
Hey, guys. How we doing?
Good. How are you?
Hey. So I was talking to my buddy about this the other day. I just think whenever you start, and I do want to see these kids get paid, definitely, but once you do that, it opens up another can of worms. Like, I don't know how you keep that fair long term. Does the long snapper for Alabama get paid more than the quarterback for TSU, or is it all based on sponsorships? Or, there's so many college athletics and athletes across the country. How would you keep that pay structure fair across the board? Just a thought there. I'll hang up and listen.
Hey, thanks for the call, Tyler. We appreciate it. Joe,
let me dunk on this. Let me dunk on this right now, Tyler. And thank you for waiting, Tyler. Now I'm going to dunk on you. No, I mean, I understand the question, but first of all, it's not fair at all right now. It's not remotely fair. Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, they get all the players. Am I right?
Yes.
So it was never about being fair. It never will be.
Ole Miss at
never
times.
Has been. Yeah, that's true. Hugh Freeze, a magnetic personality that he has.
Yes.
So that's. And again, when you're talking pay structure, Tyler, it's not a pay structure. And this is where, again, I think the stuff that's in front of the Supreme Court now, I think it's a fair argument that the NCAA is in violation of the Sherman Antitrust Act. I mean, it really is. But that side of things, to me, is not what needs to happen. It's the stuff that's in Congress and in various state legislatures for name, image, likeness. If you have an open market, then it's not about fair. It's about whatever the market says. So someone did a study last week or wrote a piece, and it may have been our Chris Vanini, about just social media influencing, okay? And actually some of the top college women's basketball players would be among the most benefiting from this, which would be now if you're on Instagram with all this following and you can monetize it, I mean, you're talking about, in some cases, six figures in money coming in. Why is this a problem? A tiny, tiny fraction of college athletes get to professional sports and make millions. A tiny fraction even of prominent college athletes. Most of them, their biggest earning power time off their talents and their hard work in athletics is during college. Again, think about the college golfer who wins a national championship and can just have a Ping sponsorship.
Yep.
That's a lot of money, and they may not make the tour. But during that time, they've been able to monetize it. And again, to me, it doesn't fundamentally change college athletics at all.
Well,
now, if you get into labor and pay structure like that, okay, that's a different story. I don't think that can happen.
Right. Well, I mean, think about guys, and these are different examples, I know, but Johnny Manziel, he gets to the NFL, and he totally flames out. Doesn't work out. Tim Tebow, he's in the NFL, and he hung around for a little bit, but it doesn't work out. Like, if you're trying to tell me, like, the top earning power moment for Johnny Manziel or Tim Tebow wasn't while they were in college and being the biggest stars in the sport, I mean, I got another thing coming for you. It absolutely was. Like, why should those guys not be allowed to maximize that earning potential at that time?
Well, I'm glad you brought up Johnny Manziel. I know I've said this on the show before. I mean, people who know me are so sick of me talking about this, but whatever, I'll do it again. Johnny Manziel is such a great example for the hypocrisy of the whole thing, because he won the Heisman at Texas A&M. He was Johnny Football. He was so much fun to watch. It was such a huge deal. Texas A&M capitalized. and they built this facility
Yep.
to house the Heisman and millions of dollars that they spent, but also it's a benefit to your program. We've talked about facilities and how important they are. So off of what he did, and yes, he did it at the school. He did it in an offensive system. It's mutually beneficial, but still, what he did to bring that kind of recognition to Texas A&M, there's a tangible benefit. And then the next fall, he's out giving autographed pictures, and he's being hunted down by, like, feds.
Yeah.
And this is, like, it's how stupid. I mean, just think about, like, the amount of resources we waste to try to catch people cheating or breaking these stupid rules. Imagine, like, what else that could be applied to in the
what
world.
else you could be doing. Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben text in, I'm excited to see how much the Vols compete in paying players when it's actually legal. Be interested.
Well, seriously. I mean, aren't you at some point, if you're sitting there as a Tennessee fan and you're looking at Alabama and you're looking at Tennessee, and there's a lot of things that go into it, and, like, good coaching is important, but aren't you kind of like, hey, are our boosters kind of slouching a little bit here? What are we doing?
Got the Haslams in there. Got a nice money train there in Knoxville.
And they're not the only ones.
I know.
Well, what's going on here? I think it'd be great. Bring it on. Bring it up. So this 5-star quarterback is getting an offer to, endorse, Gus's Good Times Deli for $800K.
Yeah.
But Dreamland, $1.2 million.
Yeah.
I mean,
one of Peyton Manning's
bring it
Papa
on.
John's joints you can endorse for $1.3 million. Yeah.
See?
Could run this thing up a little
This
bit.
could be a blast.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Drew text in, shouldn't Oregon be able to dominate in recruiting with the backing of Nike? They wouldn't even have to hide it anymore?
Yeah, so here's another thing that people lose sight of. That's very much like the Texas argument that I've heard from people. Well, Texas, oil money. There's still 85 scholarships.
Right.
And if you go to a place and don't ever play, how are you benefiting from this?
Right.
I mean, yeah, maybe on the front end, but trust me, we're talking about people who are billionaires, millionaires. They didn't get there by being stupid and making a bunch of dumb investments, right?
Generally speaking.
Well, maybe they had some ups and downs along the way, but like return on investment is something that it's a language they all speak. And it's so overblown, this idea that, we're just going to – Nike money. Yeah, they have plenty of money, but Tennessee has boosters with money that can match up in this. I mean, all these schools – and here's an example. Vanderbilt. And I've talked a little bit about this with Barton Simmons, who now is the GM for Vanderbilt. And name, image, likeness here, for example. I think it can help places like that. I think it can help level the field of anything more than it would hurt someone. If you can go to a place and be the star, if someone could come in at Vanderbilt and be like a star athlete in Nashville, like right now, would Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter, they're going to be fine. They're going to be making a lot of money as Major League Baseball pitchers. But right now, what would the opportunity be in this town this spring? I mean, people want to go out and watch these guys pitch, right?
Yeah.
In this town, I think there's a lot of potential for things like that I believe would actually make things better in terms of leveling. It's never going to be level.
Yeah.
Never has been, never will be.
Real quickly, let's get to one more text on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Sam text in, is the argument for athletes to be paid or to be able to profit from their image and likeness? I agree on image and likeness like with Johnny Manziel, but trying to actually pay all athletes a set salary will never be able to work.
100% agree.
Yeah.
It can't work. It won't work. It's not the case. Now, the Supreme Court case is kind of leading toward schools being allowed to offer more educational expenses. We saw with O'Bannon, basically that created cost of attendance, which is smart.
Yep.
I know some of this stuff gets exaggerated, but you had players, athletes at prominent schools, not able to put cream cheese on a bagel and some of these dumb things. I mean, cost of attendance helps fill in the gaps that don't get covered by your scholarship. But no, you're absolutely right. This can't be labor and just salaries. It's that completely blows up the model. Part of this model is it's tax-free money because it's opportunities provided to all these non-revenue sports. That's why it's still tax-free. The whole model's blown up if you do pay. It's whatever you can get on your own, on the market, get it. I mean, I think it's simple, but People want to make it more complicated. I don't know. We don't know. There's of course going to be some unintended consequences, just like there are with anything. But something is got to give. It's already happening in some states, and this is the way to go.
Speaking of unintended consequences, I continue my vault for the top of the Preds Pick to Click competition when we come back, and it's time for you to get in on the action as well. Be the first caller at 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. You'll have your opportunity to guess the goal scorer for tonight's Preds game against the Dallas Stars. If you get it right, you'll win a prize pack brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. We'll do Preds Pick to Click coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode on ESPN 1025 The Game. Yes, it is time for Preds Pick to Click here on 1025 The Game. Brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. The Nashville Predators taking on the Dallas Stars tonight, going for win number 7 in a row. Puck drop at 7 o'clock. Pregame at 6 o'clock here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley going for 2 wins in a row in Preds Pick to Click. We'll see if I've got what it takes to make that happen. We'll also see if the listeners have what it takes to make that happen. The listeners with 6 correct answers. Joe Rexrode at 6. Ryan Porth at 1. Robby Stanley at 1 as well. So the competition in the best bracket and the low bracket, very, very intense at this point.
It's the Gus Macker
Yes.
toilet bowl right now.
Thank you.
But unlike the Gus Macker, you ever heard of Gus Macker, Elijah?
I have no idea who that is.
All right.
Never heard that a day in my life.
That's okay.
There's no reason you should.
It's a wonderful 3-on-3 basketball tournament that started in Michigan and spread throughout the Midwest, and was sort of like it was basically like basketball mecca for a while.
There you go.
Anyway,
Well, basically, it spread far enough.
what's that?
Didn't spread far enough.
That's
I haven't
right.
heard of it.
It's not here.
Well, there are a lot of other copycats all over the country. They just they stole the idea.
Right.
Stole the idea of 3-on-3 basketball. But anyway, in that toilet bowl, you can't move up. Once you lose, you're in the toilet bowl tournament in bracket, and all you can win is the toilet bowl trophy. You, however, can win the big ones.
I can. We're going to see if
You
I
are
can
not
make
out
more
of this.
progress today. With that in mind, let's go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in today's participant, who is Andrew. Andrew, thanks for calling in to Robby and Rexrode. We appreciate it.
I appreciate y'all.
So
How you doing?
we are doing great.
Good.
Hope you are as well. Andrew, the Predators taking on the Dallas Stars tonight at home. Who is your pick to click for tonight's Preds game against the Stars?
Victor Arvidsson is due. I think he's going to knock the peanut butter off the shelf.
I like that. Andrew going with Victor Arvidsson in the competition. Andrew, good luck to you tonight.
Thank you, fellas.
Absolutely. So Andrew going with Arvidsson. Now, he's had a lot of chances as of late, including a glorious chance in the last game that Hudobin made a nice save on. But I like that pick. Andrew going with Arvidsson.
Some Arvidsson love, which is nice to balance out the earlier texter who was like, Arvidsson hasn't played all year
Yes.
and trade him for a jar of peanut
That's
butter.
right. So with that in mind, Andrew has selected Victor Arvidsson. Joe Rexrode, you are first up today with your selections. Where are you going in today's edition of Preds Pick to Click?
I mean, should I stray from what has worked?
You do whatever you want to do.
I
I think you should select Colton Sissons, but you do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I don't need to be all extreme like that. I just feel like, it's the year of Yarncroke, is it not?
It is. Leads the team in goals.
I mean, I'm gonna keep going with Yarncroke.
So you are
Joe
selecting.
Davion Rexrode goes with his namesake.
So you are selecting your man, Calle Yarncroke, in the competition. So Victor Arvidsson selected by Andrew. Joe Rexrode selecting Calle Yarncroke. Ryan Porth / Elijah Campbell has the next pick in the competition. Elijah, which way have you been directed to go?
We have been directed to go to the boy wonder here, Eli Tolvanen.
There you go. So Tolvanen has been selected by Ryan Porth on a 6-game point streak at this point.
So you and Tolvanen can't repeat together. Porth has taken that out of your hands.
I mean, I can. I'm not going to. That's very frowned upon.
We
We've
can't,
never established a rule that you can't do it. I'm just not going to do it because I have honor.
you're saying that we could pick the same ones that we pick?
Yeah.
No.
We've never established a rule. I'm just saying we've never done that. I'm not going to be the first one to do
we
it.
talked earlier in the year about the listener and
I hear you.
mimicking the listener, which is also frowned upon. I've never given consideration that we would pick the same one as each other. That's ridiculous.
Hey, I'm with you. That's why I'm not going to do it.
But it's a rule.
Well, let's make it a rule right now.
It's a rule, right?
It was
There
an
we go.
unwritten rule, and now it has become,
Now it's become a written rule.
Once
We're
I
not
put
doing
this
that.
pen to this paper.
That's right.
Should I tweet it or email somebody so
Maybe
it's
so.
written? So it's written down?
Maybe so. Give me Mikhail Granlund in the competition today. Preds pick to click. I'm going for 2 in a row. I feel good about Granlund, the way that he's played as of late. I think he finds the back of the net tonight for the Nashville Predators. Robby Stanley going for 2 in a row in the competition. Mikhail Granlund, I'm sticking with the Finns.
David Poyle would probably like that because then in his inevitable trading of Granlund.
Or maybe he holds on to him, yeah.
There's no way, right?
There's a way. I wouldn't agree with it, but there's a way. I'm not saying it's likely, but there's a way.
What's the percentage chance that the Preds trade Mikhail Granlund right now?
70%.
70?
Well, what do you think it is? Like 95? Because I don't think it's anywhere near that high.
90 2.
I don't
It's
know.
92%.
I don't think it's that high. I'd go 70. 70 is still a pretty good percentage.
Yeah, but, man. See, if I'm a Preds fan, listen to you, I'm freaking out.
What
right
if they
now.
win every
You
game
just
between
freaked
now and
me
the trade deadline?
What if they do?
I'm saying 70%.
And then he
is what I
signs
feel
with someone
comfortable
else in the offseason.
70%. I think it's a pretty good chance. I think you should be happy about that if you're a
You
Preds
should
fan.
freak out, Preds fans, if you're listening. Freak out.
That has been today's edition of Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. Our listener, Andrew, selecting Victor Arvidsson in the competition. Joe Rexrode sticking with his namesake, Callie Yarncroke, in the competition. Ryan Porth / Elijah Campbell selecting Ellie Tolvanen, the man on a hot streak right now for the Predators. Robby Stanley going for 2 in a row, selecting Mikhail Granlund in the competition. I was very tempted to go Yossi as well.
I was going to say
But as
Yossi.
good as he is, I'm always hesitant to select defensemen back-to-back. And he scored last game. So there's that.
That's
He'll
fair.
probably score twice tonight.
That's fair. And Forsberg not picked because he's not playing.
He's not playing. So
Would be unwise to pick Forsberg.
right. I was kind of nervous because, sometimes you miss news. People are busy. They're going about their days doing stuff. Maybe you miss news. And I thought Andrew might select Forsberg, but he didn't. He's up to date. He knows what's going on out there. So I appreciate that.
Job, Andrew.
So what are we going to do? If I hit tonight and I make it 2 in a row, will you officially be nervous at that point?
I mean, if I don't.
If you don't, okay, well, let's say you don't.
Yeah, because you got to.
you did score last
I did
game.
score the other
I'm trying
game,
to,
too.
not remind you of that. But, yeah.
Yeah, and no one celebrates my goal last game.
No.
Callie and I are in the corner, just trying to get a little attention. Yeah, you know what? I mean, look, it's not like anyone's been lighting this thing up. It's not easy to hit on these, so I'd be really skeptical that you could make up this ground. In the what? How many do we have left?
I don't have this
I thought we had the
count in
number.
front of me, but
We've
not
gone
many.
through 22.
Right.
I think there might be like 11 left.
That sounds right.
I mean, that would be an incredible tear. So I wouldn't say I'd be worried, but it was pretty amazing to see you miss the first 21 in a row.
Thank you.
So if you get 2 in a row, things sometimes go in streaks and snowball.
That's right.
The heck was that?
We're going streaking. That's right.
I missed the beginning of it. I just
Yes.
heard.
Well, I can tell you this. If I get back on the board tonight and Granlund scores and Tolvanen doesn't, and I take the lead over Porth, I know he's not going to be here tomorrow, but I'm going to be ruthless in my approach to Ryan Porth. I mean, he
You
acted
should
like
be.
he acted like he was, a mile ahead of me in this race that we're running. No, sir. I will be ruthless tomorrow.
Well, you should be, but just remember that we also are doing weekend winners tomorrow. And,
I know.
And that's
a separate competition.
Yeah, but Porth may return the favor after what he did last week.
That's fine. I'm not scared.
The over
Still a
on
long way
the
to go.
over on Alabama UCLA, unbelievable.
Yeah, it's just a pretty good stroke of luck last week for Ryan Porth. That does it for this edition of Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. We'll continue the conversation on the Nashville Predators when we come back. And speaking of the Predators, 102.5 The Game and T-Mobile have teamed up to help you continue the tradition with a hockey home gating party, and it's time to text in to the game line at 615-737-1025 for your chance to win the T-Mobile Hockey Home Gate. Watch a weekend Preds game with a Dos Equis prize pack, which includes a case of beer, dessert from Nothing But Cakes, a T-Mobile prize pack, and food provided by 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. Just text the word Preds to 615-737-1025. That's Preds to 615-737-1025 now to enter. The winner will be contacted on Thursday, and you must be 21 or older to enter. So make sure you get those texting fingers rolling right now at 615-737-1025. We'll be right back. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby, Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. We'll have Preds radio analyst Hal Gill joining us at 9:30. So looking forward to that conversation with him. We'll look ahead to the Predators taking on the Dallas Stars tonight at Bridgestone Arena, going for win number 7 in a row. So we'll see if the Predators are able to pull that off. Joe, let's quickly go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Shane from Ashland City texts in and says, Matt Benning will be scoring tonight. Now, you talk about a called shot. That'd be a heck of a call right there if Benning ends up on the board.
Remember Shane's name. Those of you with younger brains than mine, Shane, we got to give you a shout-out of Matt Benning scores tonight.
That's right. Brian on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says Yarncroke will score again. So Brian voicing his support for Joe Rexrode in this competition. Don't really appreciate that, but I guess I'll let it slide.
Yarncroke's year.
It is. It is pretty amazing, like him specifically, because he's been a guy that I think a lot of Predators fans have taken for granted in terms of what they ask him to do. And I've even been guilty of that as well. Like, I've watched Yarncroke play ever since he came here with the Predators. I mean, he's been here since, the end of the 14 season. So he played 12 games with the Predators, came over in a trade that year from the Red Wings with David Legwand. And, ever since then has been a serviceable player. They've played him in literally every position. They've played him up and down the lineup, whether it's been on the wing or at center, fourth line, first line, second. It doesn't matter. They've played him everywhere. And he's typically been, right around a 30-point guy in the regular season, 15 goals, 16 goals, somewhere in that category. And right now, through 31 games, he's got 11. Now, albeit his shooting percentage is really high right now. It's around 20%. So that is an extremely high number in the NHL, and you would think in a normal year that comes back down at some point. But right now, he is on pace to just blow away his career. He's on pace to get about 30 goals, and that would be impressive for Calle Yarncroke. So he continues to play really well on a consistent basis. And, we heard Matt Duchene describe it a little bit yesterday. Like, he's a guy that just scores, and he doesn't have the most talent in the world, and he's not a guy that's going to blow you away with his puck handling skills or anything like that. But he just finds ways to get open, finds the right places to be on the ice. And right now, it's working out really well for him, working out really well for you in our Preds Pick to Click competition as well.
What would James Neal have for this team right now?
Not much. Not much. Let's look.
Lot of people mad.
James Neal's got 3 goals in 17 games this year with the Oilers.
A lot of people mad about that move. It is, honestly, you do forget, like 16, 15, 16, and then a 15. He's had 4 seasons of 15 goals or more. Again, I asked you a question a couple weeks ago. If he had been if he had a devoted spot, in the top 6 during that time, how different would those numbers be? Maybe they wouldn't be that different, but there's times when it's like, hey, Calle, go center the 4th line. Hey, okay, now you're over here with this line, and you're in this wing. It's a great thing to have, and at his price, it's a really great thing to have. But maybe he's been hosed a little bit.
Well, maybe so. Look, I don't think that Calle Yarncroke is what we're seeing right now. Like I said, the shooting percentage is very high, and that's not taking anything away from him. I think he's worked to get to the areas where you can have a good shooting percentage. That's been a part of the story this year with him for sure. But, we see things like this happen where players will be on streaks where it seems like every other shot's going in the net. And that's a great place to be if you're the player. I think if you're the management side of this or a fan, you also have to keep in mind that eventually those percentages are probably going to come down. So if he was in a full-time top 6 role, could he be a consistent 20-goal guy every year? And I think it's a legitimate question. Like, could Calle Yarncroke be what Craig Smith was for this team? I think that's an interesting question. I don't know. We've never gotten to see him do that.
Different kind of player.
Different kinds of players, and I think that's part of what's worked against Yarncroke is because he can do so many different things well that they ask him to do so many different things. And a lot of times that has involved playing on the fourth line and being the center or being
on the penalty
kill and doing all of these different things. So I think that's worked to his detriment at times. But I do remember, and Joe, you'll remember this too from your time just being in Michigan around the Red Wings. Like when the Predators got him, he was supposed to be a guy that they thought could be a part of the top six for a long time. I mean, he could play down the middle. I mean, the Predators, not only were they used to be searching for a top-line center, they used to be searching for really a second-line center as well.
That was before Johansson.
Yeah, I mean, they down the middle has been an interesting position for them throughout the history of their franchise. And Järnkrok, a lot of people thought maybe could be that guy, and it's just kind of worked out differently here with the way the team has gone. But I am interested. I think that's an interesting question. Like, if given a permanent top six role, could Calle Järnkrok have similar goal production that Craig Smith has had? I don't know.
I mean, his career shooting percentage is 12.
Yep.
Like you said, he's at 24. He's had a year where he's had a couple of years where he was above 15. So this is high, but I mean, if you applied his career percentage to this, he'd be at like what, 8 or 9 goals? 8 goals probably.
Sure.
If I'm doing the math right now in my head, which you should have serious
doubts about.
Yeah, but I think I'm around there, maybe 7, 8. So it'd still be a good year. I mean, I think he's on pace for more shots this year too.
Yeah.
Than in a normal year. I mean, he's got, if you look at, he's almost two a game, 2 shots on goal a game, which is higher. So I mean, that's probably speaks to just more opportunity as well, out of necessity, I guess, to some extent with this team. But he's taking advantage of it.
He has, and that's, I mean, it's one thing to get the opportunity. You got to find a way to sustain that and take advantage of those opportunities, and he's done that as of late. So I think it's a credit to him. Now, what does it mean moving forward? Like, if you're the Predators, are you comfortable putting him in a permanent top 6 role? I think that's going to be interesting to try to figure out as they move forward here as well. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben text in, Calle has his highest trade value now. Talking about the trade value for Calle Järnkrok. Let me just tell you this: the $2 million cap hit that he's got, probably not trading that.
Yeah, I mean, that's is why, like, if you're trading also to get rid of money a lot, and like, so for example, I do think that Ryan Ellis is something to look at if you're going to make a massive move. I would think that would be an obvious place to look, but yeah, I mean, Järnkrok probably isn't going to be what you just said, and his value is still largely in the contract and in the versatility. So I don't know why. I mean, yeah, I suppose you could say his value's high right now, but I don't know. What would they get for Calle Järnkrok right now?
Not much. Not enough to be worth trading him, especially at that deal. I mean, I don't think there's any way.
I mean, other teams would like the deal.
I'll say this: before this season, if you would have asked me, hey, is Calle Järnkrok a part of your protected list when it comes to the forward group? Probably not. Like, I would have said Johansson would be a part of it. At that point, I would have probably said Duchesne would be a part of it, Forsberg, Arvidsson. I mean, you could go down the list. Like, I'm not sure Calle Järnkrok would have been a part of it. Right now, like, let's just say they go with the 7-3-1 model. That's the protection model against the expansion draft coming up with Seattle. Like, Calle Järnkrok, he's going to be on that protection list. I mean, I know he was last time, which was met with a lot of reaction to James Neal. And
Nealer.
Some Predators fans still haven't gotten over that, even though I think it's starting to work out pretty well.
I thought you said you thought they would have won it all with him in 18.
I'm not saying they would have won it all in 18. I'm saying, could he have made the difference in the Winnipeg series? I think he could have.
Well, you're asking it.
Yeah.
Answer it.
I think he could have.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw, James Neal was pretty good that year.
You are a James Neal truther.
I'm a James Neal truther. He's my guy.
Big deal. No, what is it? Big deal James Neal?
It's not big deal James Neal. It's real deal.
James Neal. Yeah,
but I guess you can throw big deal in there too.
That rhymes too, I guess. So
don't expect
maybe you could just extend the nickname. It's already real deal James Neal. Maybe it could be big deal, real
How about
deal.
Big freaking deal, James
big
Neal.
Freaking deal.
I can't remember stuff.
The real big freaking deal, James Neal.
So
with 6 points in 17 games.
You buy into that narrative.
I think look, I think he's exactly the type of player that they were missing in that series. And you look back to 17-18, I mean, he scored 25 goals that year. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. And then was a force in the playoffs, one of the big reasons they got to the Cup final as well. So
when they made the decision, you thought what?
I was surprised.
You thought they were going to protect Neal?
Yeah.
Huh. So I remember being like, oh, yeah, you got to protect the guy who's making nothing.
I thought they'd take another run at it. I did.
Well, they did take another run at it. They won the President's Trophy.
Well, you know what I'm saying, though. Like, I thought with keeping your big scorers together, they'd take another run at it. I think a lot of people were surprised. Now, in the long run, that's worked out being good because if you were going to protect Neal at that point, I think he had 1 year left on his contract. So you would, if you're going to protect him, you were going to want to sign him to a longer-term deal, which he would have absolutely been open to. I think he loved playing here in Nashville. But since James Neal signed that long-term deal, he had 19 points in 63 games with Calgary, only 7 goals. He had 31 points, 19 goals last year. A lot of those came on the power play with Connor McDavid. And right now this year in Edmonton, 17 games have been played, 3 goals, 3 assists. So it has not worked out since he signed that long-term deal.
Well, but you say it's worked out, okay, except we're talking about Calle Jarnkrok on a team that just had to go on a tear to get itself barely into the playoff picture.
Right, but
so it hasn't worked out because you didn't win a cup.
Well, sure, but the long-term trajectory of signing James Neal to a long-term contract, based on what we've seen since he signed his contract, would not – I mean, it would be adding to the list of contracts that you don't feel good about.
But
right
if you're right and they would have beat Winnipeg with him and they would have won the cup, then who cares?
I agree.
Everything else can just be like the Blackhawks. They got 3
I did
cups,
not say
man.
they would have won the cup. I said it could have been the difference in the Winnipeg series.
But if they beat Winnipeg,
I don't know if anybody was beating Washington that year. But yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe not. Maybe they would have been just the team to do it.
How cool would that have been to have seen a Nashville Predators Washington Capitals Stanley Cup final with Barry Trotz? Been pretty awesome.
So the moral of the story is they should have protected James.
Yeah, I guess so. That's the moral.
I changed my mind. You changed my mind.
Thank you.
I wrote so many times the opposite, but now I've changed.
That's what I'm here for.
Big deal, James Neal.
That's right. Big deal, James Neal. We'll
Big
continue this
freaking deal.
discussion when we come back. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode. You're on ESPN 1025, The Game. T-Mobile and 102.5 The Game are giving you and 3 friends the chance to win a stay-and-play experience at Hermitage Golf Course. Listen in today at 4:15 for the keyword to text into the game line at 615-737-1025. More details at thegamenashville.com contest page. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning. We'll be joined by Predators radio analyst Hal Gill here in about 10 minutes. We'll look ahead to the matchup tonight for the Nashville Predators against the Dallas Stars as well. So looking forward to that conversation coming up with Hal Gill. Joe, speaking of the Predators, let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Caleb texts in, says the Preds are playing better hockey now, but Willie says they can't clear the zone more than I've ever heard before. That's got to change if they want any chance at making the playoffs. Also adding in there, Caleb does, that Roman Josi will score tonight.
Okay.
So what do you think of – I don't get the sense right now that they're not able to clear the zone.
That's the other team that's having the trouble. Much more than they used to, right?
Yes.
That Preds forecheck.
Yeah, we had Dan Hynode on earlier in the show, Predators assistant coach, and talked about the physicality. I thought the way he phrased it was pretty interesting, talking about getting in on the forecheck, how the Predators are not really the biggest team, and like you don't expect this level of physicality from some of the players, some of the forward groups, especially when compared to the other lineups around the Central Division. But they found a way to get in there, and by their metric, I guess, had 66 hits on Tuesday night against Dallas, which we know every time we play Dallas, that's going to be a physical game. And that rivalry between the Stars and the Predators, I think it brings out a lot of playoff-like intensity just based on what we've seen the last couple of years with these two teams. But I do look at this lineup. I mean, you've got guys like Tolvanen and Arvidsson, even guys like Cunnin, who, I mean, they're not that big. You don't expect them to just be throwing their body around. And I thought they did a pretty good job of that. And is that sustainable long term? I don't know. We'll have to find out what goes on there. But I think when you think of physicality with the Predators, you think of, you know, the Trennans and the Oliviers and the Ekholms of the world. You don't necessarily think of some of their younger players or even some of their skill guys, but I mean, Tolvanen, 9 hits in the last game. They've had a pretty consistent buy-in in that area from everybody, and that's made a huge difference on their forecheck.
Well, and Sissons isn't huge.
Exactly.
But he's out there throwing it around. So
haymakers.
Yeah. There's got to be some kind of nickname for the Trennan Olivier combo, right? If they stay together long term.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the herd line.
Mississippi and Moscow connection, you know?
Yeah.
Is there a Moscow, Mississippi? There probably is.
I don't know. We'll have to look it up.
But, you know, those guys have brought – and that's what you expect from that line. But those guys have brought some of that. But like you said, you get those skill guys playing like that, and I think you probably go into a game against Dallas saying they're going to do that. And frankly, Dallas did it better than the Preds did in the first 2 periods the other night. I mean, that looked like a Dallas team to me, like, okay, that's the team that surprised everybody last year in the playoffs, but has been a really tough team to score on for a few years now.
There is a Moscow, Mississippi. It's
an
unincorporated community in Kemper County, Mississippi.
See, those
lying
guys
along State Highway 493.
Wow, good, quick work there.
Those southwest of the city of DeKalb in Mississippi, which I'm sure you're very familiar with.
DeKalb?
That's correct.
You sure that's how to say it?
That's how I said it.
Okay.
I don't know. I'd have to look up the official pronunciation.
Elevation
of Moscow, Mississippi at 509 feet, by the way.
Wow. Got all kinds of facts.
Yeah.
They should go do a poster there.
How about this breaking news coming from Nicole Auerbach, who we had on earlier in the show?
Why didn't you break it on the show?
And she may not be the first one to have had it. I don't know. She's just the first one I see. Roy Williams retiring from UNC.
Oh, wow. No kidding.
Yeah. That coming from Nicole Auerbach earlier in the show.
That is did you expect that, Elijah?
Not at all. I'm genuinely stunned by that.
How old is Roy Williams?
Pretty darn old, but
he is 70.
Wait, what?
70.
Only 70?
Yeah.
You're telling me he's younger than Jim Boeheim?
That's what I'm telling you. By 6 years.
Younger than Kay. Kay's, right? I think
Kay's like 72, 73, I think.
That's interesting that he goes out, I mean, you know, kind of with a whimper, frankly, with that program, you know? Maybe it's but they haven't been able to really. I mean, they've kind of been on the short end of things with Duke here for a few years. I mean, I know they beat them this year because Duke just had the one awful year, but
a lot of ACC teams beat Duke this year.
Right.
Yeah.
Trajectory has not been as good, but I figure that he would want to try to make one more run, at North Carolina.
33 years as the head coach at North Carolina.
No.
It says
33 years.
33 years as a coach. Sorry,
yeah,
I
he
read
was
that
at
wrong.
Kansas until not that long ago. I guess. Well, God, I shouldn't say not that long ago. He got the.
I mean,
That's
he
pretty long
got beat by Melo.
2003.
Yeah, he got beat by Melo in that championship game.
Yeah.
I was like, that wasn't 33 years ago. I'm only 26, so there's no way.
But still, like in my mind,
poor reading on my part.
No, but in my mind though, I'm like, okay, so he's been at Carolina for what, 7-8 years? Oh no, how about 18?
Yeah, he's been there for a long time.
Yeah, this is one of those. Boy, this job's going to be interesting. Now, Stackhouse, for example, is a guy who had it timed out. And had he got Vanderbilt rolling, would have been someone who, would maybe be mentioned for that job. I wonder how important is who in the Carolina family is obvious. Anyone right now who's really doing well? Anywhere else in the Carolina family?
I'd have to think about that. I don't know.
No one jumps right out. That's wow, man.
Michael Jordan.
Hey, why not?
That's certainly a name.
Yes.
And I'm retweeting Nicole. She didn't credit anybody else, so nice job, Nicole. Nicole breaks huge news, comes on the show. We get to hear from her dog, Red. It's a big day.
It is a big day. Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben texts in and says, makes me feel like a scandal is about to pop up with North Carolina.
I don't know about that. I mean, they already had a totally fake academic program.
They did.
That resulted in no punishment.
Nothing.
So I don't, I don't know how. I wouldn't think so.
How do you view Roy Williams and his legacy? Because I feel like just based on reading between the lines in your comments, you're not a huge fan of Roy Williams, the coach. Like you just kind of feel like maybe it's the job more than it is Roy Williams. Like what do you think about his legacy as a head coach in college basketball?
Okay, in 2007. Okay, so I used to cover the NCAA, but I used to freelance for Yahoo and cover the site I was at while doing my normal job, my day job, cover Michigan State. Michigan State played North Carolina in 2007, a ridiculously loaded North Carolina team with Tyler Hansbrough. They were they were loaded.
Talk about punchable faces. Continue.
Yes. So this was in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, like normal. It's a whole building of North Carolina fans. Michigan State was not good. Their best player was Drew Neitzel, and he was like this 6-foot dude coming off screens, shooting threes. And going into the game, going to the UNC locker room, and you always ask about matchups and stuff like this. Every single player in that locker room was like, well, it doesn't matter what they do. We do what we do, In that game, Michigan State, all those sets, they got the best shots you will ever see in a game. It was ridiculous. Neitzel had 27 points, but he was like 9 of 27. He had a terrible shooting day. Or they would have beat a team that was so much more talented than them. So I wrote a column for Yahoo that said this team is going to lose to Georgetown. This is not good coaching. You have to at least show film for 5 minutes of your opponent. You can't just say, we're more talented, we'll do what we do, and it's going to work. And I mean, the absolute venom from North Carolina fans reading that column, this is pre-Twitter. It was. And then they lost.
Comment section, message boards.
And then they lost to Georgetown like I knew they would, even though they were way better than Georgetown. And I wish I had Twitter at that time. That's one little example, just a personal thing. But, I mean, I think Roy Williams, I've come around on, he's a very good, this is a Will Wade thing with Elijah. I think he's a very good developer of talent and a very good individual coach and a very good offensive coach, and his fast break has been copied by people, so he does some things very well. I think that if Roy Williams did not spend his career at Kansas and North Carolina and had to try to work his way up at Purdue and wherever, I don't think he's an elite coach. I don't think he's in the class of a Mike Krzyzewski. I don't.
Chris in Nashville on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says Rick Barnes to North Carolina.
He's from North Carolina.
I'm going to doubt it.
I was looking at the Roy Williams coaching tree, and really the biggest name I saw was Mark Turgeon at Maryland. That's probably the most lucrative name on the list of guys that coached under Roy Williams. I don't know if he's done well enough at Maryland to warrant a UNC.
Is there not a big picture North Carolina family coach? We're someone we're not thinking about.
I don't know. We'll have to do some research. Ask Nicole. Maybe she
that-
come back on the show?
At this point, we already have – yeah. Hey, Nicole, come back on here. Yeah, I mean, here's someone tweeting at us, Adam Smith, Nate Oates, come on down. I mean,
maybe.
If there's not an obvious person to plug in here, he's one of the hot coaches.
He absolutely will be.
You know?
Breaking news in the college basketball world, Roy Williams announcing his retirement from the University of North Carolina. When we come back, we'll get back into the Predators. Preds radio analyst Hal Gill will join us. We'll do that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Elijah Campbell here with you on this Thursday morning, streaming live on YouTube, on Periscope, and on Twitch as well. And we are pleased to go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our good friend, Preds radio analyst Hal Gill, presented by Duncan, featuring their new location in Belle Meade, and TriStar Moving, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Skillsy, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm just gearing up for another, what seemed like a playoff matchup last game. I assume this is going to be another one. So getting ready for it.
It's going to be awesome. We'll get to the game itself here in just a few minutes, but I do want to get your thoughts on the Smashville Live episode that you and I did last night. Darcy Hordichuk joining the show.
Epic.
That was potentially the easiest hour of radio that I've ever done in my entire life. We probably could have done 5 hours with the former Nashville Predator.
But, yeah, when you start off for a whole hour show and just say, go, you know, that's all you have to do with Darcy. But, yeah, that was awesome. I mean, the stories, you know, he's just a character. And so I never played with him. I've heard all the stories from guys that have, and he didn't disappoint. He gave us a great show. I enjoyed that.
Well, you had some good stories too in there, Hal. I told this story on the show earlier. It brought me back to college. We got a keg one time just for a Probert Ty Domi fight that we knew was happening between the Wings and Leafs. And, you know, I mean, I know hockey, you know, it's changed for the better, right? But I do kind of miss that stuff. Do you miss that stuff?
You know what? There's a place for it. And it went, you know, he was talking about the glory days with Probert. I mean, those guys were out there, and it was the one goal is to get in a fight. And to, you know, that kind of destroyed the fighting, in my opinion. I think there was always a place for fighting, and I still think there is. I think the players need to police themselves, but it got out of hand. You know, when you had, you know, I remember being on teams where there were 3 fighters on one team and 2 fighters on the other team, and there's one guy that would be left out, and he'd be upset. You know, he'd be running around like looking for someone else to fight. And it became a sideshow. But you know, when you're talking about those days, the fight was the game. I mean, that's what people came to see. So I you know what, I do miss that, but I think it's in a better place. But I'd love to find a happy medium.
Hal, the Predators back in action tonight, taking on the Stars. They've won 6 in a row. They found themselves back into a playoff spot here for the time being. What's the biggest reason that they've been able to turn this around, in your opinion? As you watch them play, what's been different about them as of late?
I really think the defensive zone structure and the commitment from all 5 players on the ice to the D side has been the biggest difference. That kind of set them up for a little bit of confidence, I think. And now, you know, you look at that Dallas game, and everyone on that team said, yeah, we kind of got outplayed in the first and second. But then they came back in the third. But I don't look at it as outplayed. I think the Stars had the edge. But in the past, I feel like the Preds would kind of fold up a little bit. There was no quit. I mean, they battled. Sure, Dallas had the edge, but the Preds came back and battled through everything. I mean, they had defensemen tangled up and working together and fighting to get it back around, and it finally did come around. And when you do that and you hang in games and you don't give up those 5-minute lapses where you collapse, then more often than not, you're going to find ways to win games. And that's what they're doing right now is sticking in the fight. And if it's not perfect, well, they'll fight for it until it works out for them. And that's what they're doing right now. That's why they've had success.
Just from a coaching perspective here, Hal, we were kind of talking about coaches in this league and the level of impact they can have. Do you look at this like John Hines and his staff have found something, adjusted something, improved in some way, or is this they've been the same and the players are doing better at adapting to what they want them to do?
Yeah, it's a two-way street, right? I think you kind of pointed at it. You know, you can go out and put a game plan, but players got to go out and execute it, and you need a buy-in. And I really think with Yossi and Ellis being out, I think everyone on the team said, all right, we got to help out defensively. We got to get back. We can't leave Jeremy Davies and Alex Carrier. These young kids are coming in, we can't leave them hanging high and dry. So we're going to have to come back and play 5-man defense and get everyone in the picture to make sure that pucks get out and then make sure pucks get in so these guys can get a change and go out with fresh legs. And that's really became their game now. And that's, whether that's coaching or the buy-in from the players, probably a lot of both. They have that right now. And I've been on teams like that where you say, hey, we have some injuries and we got to fight through it. And it makes you a better team. Obviously you want Roman Yossi back in the lineup. You need Ryan Ellis to come back in the lineup. You need these guys. Philip Forsberg's out. That's a tough hit. But you have guys stepping up, and not just one guy or two guys. It's the whole team stepping up. And that's what makes being on a team fun.
Preds radio analyst Hal Gill on with us here on Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by TriStar Moving and by Duncan. Hal, there's been a lot of talk recently about the forecheck and how relentless that has been for the Predators in this winning streak. What have been your thoughts on that? And as a defenseman, when the Predators are executing the way they are right now on the forecheck and are as aggressive as they've been, how difficult is that to handle as a defenseman?
Yeah, it makes it miserable. And it goes into the, if you're breaking out as a 5-man unit and you're going through the neutral zone as a 5-man unit, you have Trennan barreling down the wing, and he chips it in to a guy, and the defenseman goes, okay, I have to go back. I have to deal with Trennan, so I'm going to move it pretty quick. I'm not going to sit here and just take a hit. I got to move this puck a little bit quicker than maybe I normally would. And a guy like Colton Sissons, who's just cleaning up and destroying guys everywhere lately, is reading that play and saying, okay, if he's going to move it quick, I'm going to get there quick and hit the other defenseman. So now you have two defensemen going back on, I got to get rid of it. More often than not, it's rim around the boards or it's a bobbled puck, not a clean play, and then you have the next guy jumping in and creating the turnover. And it's really trickled down through the whole team. And that's as a defenseman, I saw Chicago, and they just couldn't move it. They just could not move the puck out of their zone, and it was exhausting for them. And then they turn it over, and now you spend, 30 seconds, 40 seconds in your own end. That's exhausting. So that affects your next shift, and then it goes in waves. And, I feel like the Preds have 4 lines that are going, and they're jumping over the boards playing relatively the same way, and they're just attacking and eating up teams. Now, the Dallas game, I thought Dallas did a pretty good job moving the puck, but Dallas' forecheck was similar, right? And so that made for playoff-style hockey where the guys were just hunting and getting in. That's why we saw so many hits, is because you're setting up that forecheck, and both teams were doing it pretty well.
Hal, if this team does get to the playoffs after everything, and I mean, again, we spent weeks on here basically just talking about who's getting traded to where, and what level of blow up are we talking about, and on and on. If this team gets to the playoffs, what does that say, and also what do you think that means in the context of, the direction of the franchise?
Well, first of all, I know you don't want to. The Preds were kind of put in a position with injuries where they got to see some younger players. So, you look at Tolvanen, who's come on and been awesome. I think he's up there as one of the best rookies right now. You look at Carrier, who's really turned a corner and looks like a solid NHL defenseman. So that might make you change your idea about what this team is about. Earlier on, you said, okay, this is our core group, and this is what we're building around. Now you have Yakov Trenin playing pretty good hockey. Olivier going out there banging bodies, and everyone's falling in line. And so you say, okay, maybe we're a different team than we thought. And maybe, you squeak into the playoffs. It's going to be a battle, but you're going to learn a lot about the team. And David Poile has to be taking all that into account. He didn't want to have injuries and have these guys come in, I'm sure. But it's been kind of a pleasant surprise to see where this team could go. And once you get into playoffs, guys, you know this. You've seen it before. It's anything goes. Anything can happen. And so I'm sure the guys in the locker room are saying, hey, why not us? Why can't we do it? If Tampa and Florida and Carolina are going to be, they're battling for first position in that division. that's not the same as trying to squeak in. I mean, there's a sense of urgency that you're playing with trying to get into that fourth spot. And that urgency carries over in the playoffs, and sometimes that can catch teams off guard. So I wouldn't rule them out. If they can get in, they can make some damage.
Preds radio analyst Hal Gill has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode, presented by Duncan, featuring their new location in Belmead, and TriStar Moving, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Hal, great stuff as always, my friend. Appreciate you taking time to join us.
Hey, I just want to add one thing. As a radio station, I really appreciate you guys, Caroline Fenton, coming on. And I think that's awesome that you're bringing in a woman's voice, and I'm excited to hear her. But that's just cruel and unusual to throw her in with Jared.
Hey.
Does she know? Does she know?
She's about to get a crash course,
excited.
my friend.
I'm excited to talk to her, so I'm happy to be involved with 102.5 and the game for bringing her on. I think that's awesome.
Well, we appreciate that, Hal, and great stuff as always, and have fun on the call tonight.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy the game.
Absolutely. That was Predators radio analyst Hal Gill.
Hazard pay for Caroline?
Maybe so. Maybe she negotiated that into the contract. We'll have to see.
She did say that she on Twitter she's got batteries for smoke detectors.
Well, that's a good start.
Yeah.
That's a good start. That could be of immediate assistance to Stillman on that regard. When we come back, we'll have the final segment of the show, get into the NFL hot topics, and also opening day in Major League Baseball. What's your interest level? Let us know on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. All that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. Preds fans, join 102.5 The Game on Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. for Smashville Live. Smashville Live airs every Wednesday on 102.5 The Game during the Preds season and will feature Preds players, former players, and other special guests. You can now watch the show online as well via 102.5 The Game's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and theGameNashville.com. Smashville Live brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka, Spring Hill Heating and Cooling, and Red Spirits and Wine in Bellevue. To view or listen to past shows, go to theGameNashville.com/Smashville Live. We had a great one yesterday with myself, Hal Gill, and Darcy Hordichuk that we talked about in the last segment as well. So go check that out at theGameNashville.com/Smashville Live.
Seemed like a good bleeping time.
Yeah, it was. It was a good time yesterday for sure, and lots of stories with Darcy Hordichuk and Hal Gill. I didn't have to say a whole lot yesterday, which is probably good for all of us that I don't have to talk a whole lot.
Yeah, at one point I was like, man, I haven't heard Robby's voice
in a long time.
8 minutes in a row.
It's been a long time since I've heard Robby's
Those are the best, right?
Yeah.
Let them go.
That's right. Absolutely. So go check that out at thegamenashville.com. Joe, today is opening day in Major League Baseball, the first game of 162. I think every team is scheduled to play today. So they're trying to get to as normal as possible, still with COVID protocols in place as well. More fans will be allowed in stadiums. They're trying to play a 162-game schedule this year in Major League Baseball. What is your interest level in Major League Baseball opening day?
Here's the thing. You're going to see some things on Twitter like the greatest opening day, baseball opening day, right? Now, I will say that if you are at a ballpark on opening day and you got an afternoon game and you got a hot dog and a beer and you're taking part in a packed – I mean –
it's pretty good.
That's pretty hard to beat. So – from that perspective, I agree that baseball opening day is special. And people would argue, like, which opening day is better. A lot of cases just based on if you have a favorite sport that's far. Like some people say, oh, hockey easily, or NBA, whatever. But it's not close. I mean, football opening day in the NFL and college, you only play 16 games. Oh, I'm sorry, 17.
17. Get it right.
Or you only play 12 games. Some of that has to do if your college team opens against, Northwestern Tech State Poly.
It's not very exciting.
And is a 53-point favorite. Maybe that's not, but it's still the band and the cheerleaders and the tailgate and the pageantry of a football game. So I think just like in a lot of ways, and a lot of it is just the fact that there's so many fewer games, football rules opening days.
Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jason in Clarksville texts in, I've been waiting for baseball since the NLCS last year. The Braves have a strong rotation, and Fried is going to shut down the Phillies today. Chop on. Jason in Clarksville. Big Braves fans, they're excited about this year.
Well, and that's the thing, too. If you have a team, if your team is good, then it makes it that much sweeter, too.
You fired up about the Tigers this year?
Yeah.
They're going to be great.
I don't even know anybody who's on their crappy team. Miguel Cabrera is still on their crappy team.
Does Cabrera play for the Tigers? Yeah. It's not going to be a great year in Detroit.
Yeah, so it depends a lot. Now, if I was at, I've been at Tiger Stadium and Comerica Park for opening day. Then you're pumped about opening day.
Yeah, sure.
If you can take part in it, heck yeah. Doesn't matter if your team sucks.
Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Heidi from Dixon text in, I'm a casual baseball fan. Usually I watch some of the first week. This year, I'm just waiting for the last 20 games for a playoff push. The pandemic has made my priorities change some, and baseball got numb with all the negotiations and the juice balls from a few years ago as well.
So, Heidi, you're talking about like 98? 98 got you mad? Or
I guess.
Going back to the McGuire-Sosa summer? Yeah, last 20. Yeah, that's about – I think baseball. Now,
there was a conversation a couple years ago from the pitchers that they juiced the balls a bit.
Yeah.
Because, home runs were getting launched left and right.
That happens every 5 years.
I know.
It? Yeah. I think for me, baseball, obviously you get through the hockey and NBA playoffs, and you have that dead period. July is, I think, a lot of people say, okay,
watch a little baseball.
Let's pay some more attention to MLB.
Real quickly, I do want to get to this. This coming from Andrew Groover of the NFL Network. Packers general manager Brian Gutekunst and Titans general manager John Robinson spotted at the Gopher Football Pro Day, so in Minnesota. Maybe Aaron Rodgers will finally get himself a first-round wide receiver, or
Rashad
maybe the
Bateman.
Titans may be looking at Rashad Bateman. in the first round.
Rashad Bateman is a good player.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would be there at 22. Maybe the Titans, if that's who they want, maybe the Titans can move down some and still get him and still get a corner they like. Todd McShay had his mock-up earlier, and he had J.C. Horn going 10th. So my mock draft
moving up the board, man.
My mock draft with the Titans getting J.C. Horn at 22nd, maybe a little bit optimistic.
But hey, if you can make that happen, if you're the Titans, you'll take it right now. I'd sign up for him at 22 right now.
But if your mock drafts aren't at least a little bit fantasy based, really, what fun is it?
Yeah,
right?
like what's the point?
Like a bracket. It's got to be a little ambitious for it to be a little fun.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Predators taking on the Stars tonight. Puck drop at 7 o'clock. Pregame at 6 o'clock here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about it all. This has been Robby and Rexrode. Darren Donica Chase coming up next. This is ESPN 102.5 The Game.